All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is June 6th, 2026, and we are live on YouTube. It's the MazzaMedia live show coming to you on the Saturday, first Saturday in June. We're less than a month away from the 4th of July and our nation's 250th anniversary. Today is D-Day, which in 1944, many United States soldiers sacrificed their lives on Normandy Beach, and just an incredible show of fortitude. And of course, remember those soldiers that gave their lives in that war. So I always think about that stuff on days like today. So today's show is a lot to talk about. This is one of the first shows I've done in a long time where I don't even know where to start. Okay, this has been a week. Quite the week. You've seen the Goode, the Proctor, the Today Show, and more. I was about to call this show The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. This has been a wild week in which Karen Reed and her team have been on the Today Show. Something's off-raid coming through. All right, good. The New York Knicks are up 2-0, which is, for me, I'm a Celtics fan, but, people were asking last night, how can Celtics fans root for the Knicks? Look, the San Antonio Spurs won the lottery in 1997. They got Tim Duncan, who should have been a Celtic. They won 5 titles. Then they go and they get Wembyana after winning the draft lottery again. So that's my attitude. I just can't root for the Spurs. I'm sorry. Thank you. Oh, wow. Something off. Send everybody over. That's fantastic. Dennis Sweeney's in the house. We've had the New York Knicks win 2 games this week. We have had Adam Deitch on Emily C this week, which was a tremendous interview, by the way, which was unbelievable. Emily did a fantastic job. Adam Deitch did a fantastic job. So many people were welcome to everyone coming from Something's Off. I do appreciate that. Great show over there, as always. The Something's Off podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate that, guys. Yes, it's been a week. It's been a wild week over in the Kelsey Fitzsimmons world. Justin, is going to have to pay a little bit, as we learned. I'm going to try to see if I can get a show going on that soon. But there's been so much Karen Reed news this week that today's show is a Karen Reed show. And I like Scott McGinnis's comment here when he says Karen Reed has been on the offense all week long. That's a fact. Good to see everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Good to see everybody. Maria, good to see you. Daryl, good to see you. Hello, Emily. Sua, Romo, good afternoon. Dizzy, hello. Sarah B. Creative in the house. Once again, always talking basketball with me. Law and Disorder in the house. Dennis Sweeney in the house. Brenda, say hello to Brenda for me. Amy's in the house. Granny Debbie's in the house today. Good to see her, as always. So many wonderful people. Nunya Business in the house. Mrs. Bucket 920 in the house as well today. Thank you guys so much. Rami's here. Good afternoon, Rami. Good to see you. Mirage is here. Aaron's here. Bob is my name is here. Chicago Marie here as well. U.S. Lily is here. Good to see you guys. The big old dog. How are you? Tiff, good to see you. Jennifer Stockdale. I used to attend a lot of the Karen Reed standouts when we did the national standouts with Jennifer Stockdale. She used to host them in the Worcester area, Auburn area. Very good times, of course. Andrea Stewie's here. Good to see you as always. Roll Tide. All right. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I appreciate you guys so much. It's been a week. I saw that Melanie Little went almost 5 hours last night. She started at 7:30, and she was on for 5 hours almost last night, which is incredible. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, and honestly, there's too much to talk about, which is probably why Melanie and others have had to stream for so long, because there's so much to talk about. I don't even know where to start. Like I said at the beginning of the show here, Maria's cooking and watching. I'm gonna fire up my Blackstone later today because it's raining tomorrow, I think. So I'm gonna do that today instead. So I'm gonna go out later tonight, maybe in the late afternoon. It's actually raining today. No, not till 10 p.m. And actually, there's not even any rain in the forecast, I don't think, anymore. Let me see what it looks like. Yeah, they're saying it's going to rain tonight around 10 o'clock. Okay, well, that's not too bad. Looks like the rain's gone by tomorrow. That's good news. Blessed text. Good to see you. Kat, good to see you. All right. Let me do one thing. I'm going to turn my fan up just a notch here. There we go. Just a little bit more cold air is needed here. It's just, it's getting hot quick out there. It's, what is it today? It's, 82, 83 degrees through most of the state right now in Massachusetts. So, yes. All right. So, Jessica, good to see you as well. Like Scott McGinnis just said, Karen Reed went on the offense in a big way. And there's no question that a few weeks ago, the anti Karen Reed people were like, oh, yeah, they're suing Karen, they're suing Turtleboy. When Karen Reed's already filing her lawsuits, right, her civil suits. We have Karen Reed, who announced this week that we saw is suing the Canton Police Department and suing the Massachusetts State Police. And over in Kelsey Fitzsimmons' world, I hope that she sues the North Andover Police Department relatively soon. We'll see when that news breaks. But Karen and her team have a plan. Alan Jackson and Karen have a plan. And we're starting to see that carried out. This is a absolute trench war, to say the least. You have the O'Keefe family suing Karen. You have the McAlberts suing Karen and Turtleboy. You have Karen suing the McAlberts. You have Karen suing Proctor. You have Karen suing now the Canton Police and Massachusetts State Police Department. This is a wild scenario. And really, I'll be honest with you, since the second trial ended, with the exception of maybe the past 3 weeks, this is really the last 3 weeks, I would say, in terms of Karen Reed versus her adversaries, has probably been the most intense couple weeks that we have seen since the second trial ended. This is really putting the Karen Reed story back on page one again in terms of local news, national news, People Magazine's Twitter page, TMZ, talked about this yesterday on Twitter. You saw the Today Show hosting Karen Reed. You've seen all your local media news outlets, Christina Rex from WBZ, covering this stuff again. So this story is really becoming front page news again. It really is. And this is really now getting to, this is moved way past, in my opinion, as we can say, obviously. This is no longer about Karen Reed like it was between 2022 and 2025, about Karen Reed really defending herself to prove her innocence. This is now a trench war where every single party from both sides now is at a level of neutral ground where they're both saying, it was you. It was you. You did it. Karen did this. Or Karen's saying, no, you guys did it. That's what this is. And honestly, this is where the game should always have been played. And that's one of the biggest things about this right now, is this is where the game should have always been played. There was no business that the police departments, Canton, State Police, whatever, DA's office in Norfolk County, should have ever charged Karen Reed. You have Greg Conner now at basically a candidates dinner the other night. Well, I think Karen was overcharged. All Greg Conner is doing right now in his campaign is he's trying to do what a lot of politicians do, which is, I know that I might be affiliated with Michael Proctor and that way of doing things, but I disagree with it too. You can trust me. You can vote for me, which is really a pivot. It's really deception. It's really what's happening is it's his political way of saying, yeah, I'm like you guys. I disagree. I can't believe that happened in Norfolk County. Dina's in the house. Dina has been all over the news this week, holding it down for Karen Reed and all the supporters. Dina does not hold back. Dina says exactly what everybody's thinking, and Dina has been a frontline warrior for a long time. Shout out to Dina. So, he gets up there and he's like, well, I'm like you guys. I mean, like, I can't believe what's happened. Karen was overcharged. That's just that. All that is to save face. That's to try to distance himself from being associated with Michael Morrissey. When that guy you all know is going to get in there and 90%, 100% of the time is going to hold down exactly the values of that inner circle of people that come from the Michael Morrissey circle and his circle in any other circle. That's all that's going to happen. I guarantee it. I don't buy that at all. Chicago Marie agrees. That's just a fact. Exactly. And this is exactly a great comment here by AB. Greg Connor, you were CC'd on all the emails you knew all along. We were there. Connor said he's proud of his accomplishments, and I was gone. Exactly. Because all that's going to happen is if you want more of the same in Norfolk County, if you live there, that's all you're getting. And I know that there was someone that's a notable person on anti-Karen Reed saying, well, Greg Connor and Michael Morrissey are not one and the same. That's total nonsense. Okay? I understand that as individuals, there's always going to be a level of difference. I completely agree with that. However, this is like the lead wolf in a wolf pack departing and a wolf from the very same wolf pack taking over. It's at the end of the day, no matter what wolf leads that wolf pack, it's still the same wolf pack. And that's the difference. It doesn't matter if it's Michael Morrissey, Greg Connor, little big steps candidate out of their circle. It doesn't matter. This is all the same nonsense. And that's all you're going to get. And for this county, I'm just concerned at this point, as many people are, that this county has too many candidates running. I understand there's a primary coming up. This is a big primary. This primary is probably going to determine the whole thing, obviously, once it gets to Republican versus Democrat. Massachusetts obviously trending Democrat. But I'm concerned there's just too many opponents. But what I'm impressed with is Adam Deitch basically this week condemning Michael Morrissey and saying he should resign. Adam Deitch did not hold back in his opinion. And when you see what's happened, what's been allowed to happen, this has been far too intense in this county for far too long. And that's good that other candidates are also calling for Michael Morrissey's resignation. However, the problem is voters out there that maybe don't have free Karen Reed, pro Turtleboy values might vote for another candidate that might be, well, not Greg Connor, but not Adam Deitch. I'm going to vote for another candidate. And if you look at Spencer Pratt, who just ran for mayor in California, there was a third party there. That third party has resulted in that runoff taking place, which is great for Spencer Pratt because he's going to get another shot at this. But you see how a third candidate can take about, I think it was about 20% of the vote that third candidate got. And it prevents the head candidate from 50% and also Spencer Pratt from 50%. So these extra candidates can harm you. And right now, what we don't know about Norfolk County is we know in Norfolk County, the people that are pro Karen Reed, the people that are pro Turtleboy. But what we don't know in full actuality is how many of those voters actually are enough to push Adam Deitch over the top. We don't know. And we also don't know how many people in Norfolk County are going to vote for business as usual. And Greg Connor is that business as usual candidate. So it's going to be very tough to decipher how that election's going to go. I've done a poll. I've seen Grant Smith Ellis do a poll, and both of those polls came out almost exactly the same. The only problem with that poll is it could be that poll is almost certainly an oversampled poll. And oversampled means that a majority of the people that are voting have Karen Reed or Turtleboy values. And what that means is that those polls that we run on our pages, my page is a pro Karen Reed, pro Turtleboy page, right? So if I do a poll, the majority of my voters are going to share Karen Reed, Turtleboy values. So those polls can't be trusted. Even if it's say like 90% Adam Deitch, 5% Connor, because a couple of anti-Karen Reed people pop in and vote, that does not necessarily speak to everyone in Norfolk County that really could be, number one, not as aware of these candidates' values as they should be. Number two, potentially negligent voters, meaning they're the kind of people that don't really focus much on these candidates and just say, you know, basically the week leading up to, I think I'll vote for so-and-so, and they go and vote. So you just don't really know how the voting is going to go. So my poll can't be trusted. You know, it's like if I ran a poll and said, hey, is Karen Reed innocent or not? Obviously, if I ran it on my page, it's going to come out majority Karen Reed. Now, if you ask most of the people in Norfolk County, maybe there's a 5 to 10% margin of error with what people will think. I don't know. It's not a poll that can be trusted. But my concern for Adam Deitch in his campaign is the undercutting. I do think that Adam Deitch has a strong base. I do. But what I'm saying is I don't know. It's like any election. You know, a lot of times in a presidential election, we're not trying to get into the belief systems in election. It's oftentimes the independent voters, right? They have the Republicans that are like, I'm voting for my candidate. The Democrats, I'm going to vote for my candidate, right? But then it's usually the independent voters that put over that candidate and which candidate overall wins that election. You know what I'm saying? So that's usually what happens in a lot of presidential elections is the independent voters push it over. So it will be interesting. What I'm also interested in is how many people are going to vote that are pro Karen Reed, pro Turtleboy, that have not usually voted in their DA's race before. Emily had talked about this with Adam Deitch this week and said that I think only 20% of the electorate had actually turned out and voted, I think, the last time Morrissey ran. That's huge. That's very huge because if there's say, for example, 80% or 60, 70% of people that are free Karen Reed didn't vote in the last DA election. And Michael Morrissey just won by okay, there we go. Good. All right, good. I saw my system freezing there for a second. Okay, good. I'm back. All right, we're back. So yeah, Streamer went for a sandwich. What I'm thinking is that if there's a lot of people that didn't vote for the district attorney's spot last time around, and there's a lot of voters that are now going to turn up and vote, that's very huge for Adam Deitch. That could mean that there's a lot of people out there that are going to hit the polls and check off the Adam Deitch vote, which would be unbelievable, which would be absolutely incredible. So that's a huge thing right there. I would say that's a very, very huge outcome if that's the case. If there's a lot of people sitting there saying, you know what, I'm voting for Deitch, I'm getting out there, let's hit the poll, let's vote. That would be a rallied base, basically. So that's huge. But I just don't see, you know, how many people out there, because I'm interested in not knowing the data. Did Michael Morrissey typically run unopposed? Thank you so much, Kyle. I'll take a look into that later. I know we've been talking about that. Kyle, thank you for all your work, man. You've been doing a lot. You've been doing some of the great document work out there, man. I can't say I appreciate you enough and all the job you do. Guys, follow Kyle Sharkey on X. He has a lot of documents. He always, every time letters come out, information comes out. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it just bumped. I started spinning. I was like, what the hell is going on? So he ran unopposed. So Dennis says he ran unopposed. So that tells me one thing. He ran in his primary unopposed. Did he run against no candidate in the Republican Party as well? So that'd be interesting. So if he ran unopposed the whole way, that tells you the whole story right there, which basically puts this big in the driver's seat for Adam Deitch if there's a contender out there. I think there's also a silent majority of Karen Reed supporters as well. I mean, you look at like a show like this, there's what, 400, 500 people have been watching the show so far. You have not everybody's commenting, right? Not everybody's commenting because there's people that just listen in the background, have it on TVs, whatever. So there's a silent viewership there too. Probably some antis watching, saying "Bleep you, MazzaMedia! Bleep you, Mazza!" That's probably true. But you have a lot of people out there that don't talk about Karen Reed. That is, despite all the people, like we know the people that are Karen Reed supporters, like we know the names, you know the faces, you see the people that wear the shirts, but there's so many people out there that don't express that they support Karen Reed, that they support Turtleboy. There's so many people out there. Those are silent majority people. And you know that they're in Norfolk County. You know that they're in Canton. Not everybody, like Dennis and Brenda, will get up there and you know, put their face out there and express their opinion in front of a select board. Other people are more, you know, quiet, reserved. People differentiate in their approaches. Some people are like the Sweeneys, Rita Lombardi, Peter Murphy, that will get out there and they'll get to the mic. They'll tell you exactly what they think. Then you have a lot of people that are big supporters that are quiet about it, that don't post online, that don't talk about it on their socials, that don't post comments about, you know, they're kind of behind closed doors. They don't have a lawn sign for Adam Deitch or Karen. You know, you have that silent majority. And there could be a lot more supporters out there that are ready to vote for Adam Deitch in this election that we just don't know about. So this could be, voter turnout's going to be very interesting, to say the least. Very, very much to say the least. Greg Conner being a new candidate, you know, that could hurt him as well. Most people are probably used to the same candidate being on the ballot. Obviously, Michael Morrissey holding that role for a long time. That could be very interesting to see how this pans out. You know, in terms of is Greg Conner going to get the full Michael Morrissey vote that Michael Morrissey used to get, or is there going to be a big dip because that name is not as known by that base? We'll see, but there could be a big anti-Karen Reed, anti-Adam Deitch vote. We'll see. We just don't know. It can go a lot of different ways, but I'm interested in seeing where it goes. But I thought Adam Deitch did a fantastic job on Emily C's show. I thought Emily C did a fantastic hosting job. I thought it was fantastic that Emily C, being someone who does live in Norfolk County, was out there to ask questions as a voter, as someone that has she has a lawn sign on her front yard. I thought that was very good to have Adam Deitch speak to one of his, you know, constituents, I guess is the word, you know, voters potentially, get the word out there. I think that's one of the most effective ways. Emily C had great viewership on that show. Adam Deitch, obviously, you know, was answering a lot of questions, which was great. I thought he was a very friendly candidate. I think it was a good move by him to go on that show. And again, I think he picked a great show to go on. I think Emily is a great person. Definitely enjoyed that program. Got to catch up on it, and a lot of great questions were asked. And I thought Adam Deitch gave us more information as to what his plan is and what's going on. I thought he gave some fair answers as well. Certain things he wouldn't delve into, obviously, until he really hits office. That's absolutely huge, no question about it. What is funny is Greg Conner is the complete opposite to Michael Morrissey. Meatball was a career politician before he finally got to DA. Connor's going from a lawyer to politician. Yeah, right. It would have been great to vote. Exactly. So yeah, it's kind of crazy being a non-Norfolk County person myself, and it's like, oh, I can't vote. I can't show up to the polls and cast a vote and all that because of the, you know, the ongoing, you know, limitation that if you're not from the county, you can't vote in their elections. So that's to say the least on that. But again, fantastic job by Adam. Great hosting job by Emily C. And I thought, again, that they just did a great job overall. Again, the presentation was great. Absolutely enjoyed it. And that was good. Let me see if I have any details. I got a video I'm going to play. I'm going to play some videos here today as well. Just a crazy week. Just not in any way, shape, or form a boring week at all. I mean, there's been so much news this week. It's just unbelievable. It's never, it amazes me that throughout all that there's always like an endless or boundless level of news. There's always something newsworthy all the time. And it's like every time you think, okay, this story is over, everybody's moved on, there's really nothing more to talk about. I'm covering Kelsey Fitzsimmons now. It's like you always see the story kind of come back to the fold again, which is incredible. So let's take it here. This is the Today Show. Today, Junior, today. Karen Reed files an explosive new lawsuit, and now the Today Show wants to talk to her, Action Alan Jackson, about this whole saga. So let's talk about this, shall we?
Her innocence. There's more evidence who serve in that department. And joining us now, the town of Canton, meantime, says it refutes any broad stroke characterizations about the people who serve in that department. And joining us now is Karen.
That's absolutely hilarious to me. Right off the bat, Canton being Canton, like, our officers are good people. This is a good department. Karen Reed is raking our department under the coal, raking them on the coals. This is terrible. And how could she do this? How could, it's just absolutely, I remember Rita Lombardi saying once, the gaslighting is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And it is absolutely incredible. Let's sidestep for a second. Let's go here. All right, now let's go here. I'm gonna sidestep for just a minute. Is that displaying on the screen? Oh boy. All right. The following statement is from the town of Canton. The internal affairs investigation involving Sergeant Sean Goode was initiated after the town became aware of inappropriate text messages through the district attorney's office on October 24, 2025. Upon learning of the messages, the town placed Sergeant Goode on administrative leave, opened an internal affairs investigation, and retained an outside investigator. However, the town did not and still does not possess the messages themselves. The town's outside investigator was granted access to the messages in December 2025, subject to a court-issued protective order that strictly restricted dissemination of the messages. The outside investigator was required to review more than 2,000 voice notes and text messages dating back to 2013. It's amazing how you get in the habit of saying 2013, then when the next decade flips, you're almost like ready to say 2020, when it's really just 2013. It's just, the way every number is said differently just amazes me. That's all. Moving forward. As a part of the internal affairs process, Sergeant Goode's union counsel was also permitted to review the messages in full. The scope of that review, combined with the limitations imposed by the protective order, made the process time-intensive. Sergeant Goode was subsequently scheduled for an internal affairs interview, but refused to appear. Wow. The town then initiated termination proceedings and placed the appointment of a hearing officer on June 2nd, 2026, select board meeting agenda. However, Sergeant Goode tendered his resignation on May 29th, 2026, effective June 2nd, before those proceedings could be completed. Wow. Yeah, that wasn't... Do you guys think he was tipped off or what? Obviously, the guy was tipped off. Maria Grasso, good to see you. Susan Weekly, good to see you. Yeah, I mean, obviously, this guy was tipped off about it. It was obviously, hey, man, just resign while you have the chance. And that's what Alan Jackson alluded to, too, in his letter. Under Massachusetts civil service law, the town was required to conduct a full adjudicatory hearing before terminating Sergeant Goode. His resignation occurred before that hearing could take place. The internal affairs report will be released when finalized and will be a public record subject to legal required redactions. The report will also be provided to the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. That's the Post Commission. Claims that the town knowingly ignored misconduct or failed to take these allegations seriously are inconsistent with the actions taken. Upon learning of the allegations, the town promptly removed Sergeant Goode from the workplace, retained an independent investigator, and pursued appropriate personnel action based on the information available through the investigative process. So again, this is just, I just feel like I don't buy this. I'll buy that for $1, to quote RoboCop. I just find this very interesting. Alan Jackson said he believes that he believes that Goode was basically informed of the text messages, and basically it's my estimation. This is what Alan Jackson's saying as well, that Goode resigns on the 29th. And then there was a, proceeding for termination on June 2nd. This guy doesn't fight for his job. The termination never happens. He just kind of, sidesteps left out the door, and it's over for him. He's resigned, and Canton, let's see what Scott's saying. Scott said a lot of great information. Goode had to know he was dead in the water since last October, but obviously the corruption in Canton and the NCDO allowed him to hang in there at the last seconds. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like Alan Jackson said, obviously they got to him and said, hey, just get out of here before we have these termination proceedings, and all that. It's, again, he was subsequently scheduled for an internal affairs interview. Again, internal affairs can only interview you if you're actually an active cop. If you're not an active cop, I guess it's over, right? But refused to appear. So he didn't appear for internal affairs. They scheduled termination proceedings, placed an appointment of the hearing on June 2nd. And then that's it. He resigned on the 29th. He was out effective June 2nd. And those proceedings never took place. That's very interesting to me. And again, the town was required to conduct a hearing before terminating him, but that didn't take place. So there has to be some kind of strategy there from the police department, from the town, and from Sergeant Goode, I'd have to imagine. Again, if they felt that this guy, or he felt that he was kind of without blemish, then I'm sure they would have gone forward with this. But because he's not without blemish, why bother to have it? Very interesting stuff. So again, the town defends itself, claims that the town knowingly ignored misconduct or failed to take these allegations seriously, are inconsistent with the actions taken. Now, my argument about this, that the town knowingly ignored misconduct or failed to take these allegations seriously, are inconsistent with the actions taken, to me is a load of shit. All right, and I'm going to tell you why I think it's a load of malarkey. This town, Dennis Sweeney's here. Brenda Sweeney's probably listening. There's probably residents from Canton right now that have spoken at the Canton Select Boards. This town has been going to the mic before that select board for years, going back to 2023, every week, making their statements, making their comments, stating exactly what they think is wrong with the town. Every single week. This town is aware, and the town's argument, well, the town knowingly ignored misconduct or failed to take allegations seriously. Now, I'm going to extend that past Goode. I mean, there's been a lot of allegations about the officers in that town. How many times did someone in that town go to the mic, make a comment, say this, and that about the town, and it's just crickets every single week? Email the town. Try to talk to the town. Try to address things with the town. So do I think that the town of Canton knowingly ignored a lot of this? Yes, I do. Of course I do. I think that what's happening is once this stuff hits their doorstep, and I'm talking about the town's doorstep, they just start to bail out. Helena Rafferty, other officers, they just exit stage left, exit stage right, whatever, and they're gone. And they just move on. And I think that's what happens every week. Not every week, but over the years. I mean, there's been a lot of, these guys have all been on a lot of these officers have been on the stand They've been confronted about their behavior. There's been suspicion about their behavior. And again, what their level of involvement was or was not, maybe we'll never know, but at the end of the day, there's a lot there. And do I think the town of Canton took this seriously? No, I don't. I'm concerned that Canton's always been a good old boys network, quite honestly. And that's just my facts. I mean, it's come on. Right. It's unbelievable. It really is. Yeah, it's wild out there. It's wild. They don't want to be public facing with all of this. It's just take the path of least resistance. Upon learning of the allegations, the town promptly removed Sergeant Goode from the workplace, retained an independent investigator, and pursued appropriate personnel action based on the information available through the investigative process. The messages are abhorrent, deeply offensive, hateful, and do not reflect the values of the Canton Police Department or its members. Well, I hope not. The men and women of the Canton Police Department are entrusted with serving every member of the community fairly. Well, that's good. Tell that to Karen Reed and John O'Keefe. Professionally and with respect. Well, tell that to John O'Keefe and Karen Reed. Preserving that trust requires accountability, transparent, and adherence to the highest standards of public service. The town of Canton wants the community to know that these allegations involving conduct that calls into question the professionalism, integrity, or impartiality of a police officer are taken seriously and addressed in accordance with applicable law and post requirements. Interesting. So back to this.
Karen Reed, along with her two attorneys, Alan Jackson and Charles Waters. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Karen, let's start with you because we really haven't heard from you much and seen you really at all.
Well, that's because you haven't invited me on the Today Show in quite some time, Diane. Yeah, Karen, obviously she's busy. And honestly, I'm sure she probably wants to stay out of the public light as much as possible these days, just because, again, it's been a very public-facing past couple of years for her.
Since the jury's not guilty verdict, first, just why file this lawsuit now? You already have one lawsuit in the queue. Why do this now?
Well, it's kind of a solid question.
This was always our plan.
I think it's right off the bat, she answers the question perfectly. It's always the plan. How can you not sue these police departments? How can you not? How can you not sue these police departments? There's just too much there. There's too much to question. This is a fact that, let's be honest here. No matter what your opinions of what happened in the House, who may or may not have been involved, no matter what your opinion of this whole matter is, as it pertains to John O'Keefe, the Karen Reed portion of this was always in play because of the police departments, right? So basically what that means is no matter what happened, we believe in the House. The Karen Reed allegations, Karen Reed being on trial, is really ultimately at the end of the day the doing of the police departments, the crime scene, pinning it on the girl. It's one thing. Let's just take the McAlberts. Let's just take all these people out of the equation for the purposes of argument. Let's say that there's an incident that happens in another town. Someone's killed and left to die in the cold on the front lawn. In this particular situation, this is not a I'm losing my thought. I had such a great example, and it just gone, flew the coop. Let's just say that overall, there was nothing foul about any of this, right? Now, let's say in this particular circumstance, there's a family that lives inside a house, okay? And this particular family, for example, in this argument, has no allegations, no suspicions, no rumors, no possible ties to anybody that's a police officer, right? Nobody that's on a police force anywhere, nobody that's whatever, right? This is just a family that completely is untied, doesn't even know the names of the cops in town. The cops don't even know them, okay? Let's just say that that's, in this alternate scenario, what happened, right? And this family, for some reason, just says, I think it was this lady that hit her boyfriend. Well, it's up to that police department to investigate and determine if that's practical. And if it is practical, then maybe that woman should be charged with murdering her boyfriend, for example, right? But what I'm arguing here is that what my argument here is, and this is in no way a defense of the McAlberts, it's more of a way of saying that this whole situation as it pertains to Karen and her involvement in this, her being on the stand, is really more about the police departments than it is the McAlberts. Getting back to my alternative example, any family in a said house that had a similar incident could say, I think it was this lady. But no matter what they really say to the cops, the burden of the investigation is on the cops, right? So really, at the end of the day, Karen Reed doesn't really have to go on trial if it's not for the cops pinning it on the girl. So that's what I'm trying to argue here, is that the cops are the accelerators and the solidifiers of the Karen Reed portion of this entire story. As it pertains to John O'Keefe, that would obviously pertain to our belief system that something went on in the house. So realistically, the greater villains to John O'Keefe is whomever killed him. The greatest villains to Karen Reed is whomever pinned this on her. And that cannot happen without the police departments, which is why it's so important to sue the police department. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get the argument of what I'm saying is that it's really your proctors and your Canton police officers and your state police officers that are really the tier one villains for Karen Reed and all this. Because again, those cops could have looked at this any way they could, but because they chose to move forward with her, you have taillight evidence, you have all kinds of stuff that happened that was overlooked, and they're just saying it's Karen. These officers are going on the stand and basically testifying in a way that basically plays this in the favor of Karen Reed's guilt. They're not, it's not in any way objective. So if those officers did a favor, say, for a family inside of a house, which all of us believe that are pro Karen Reed, then how can you not look at those cops and say those cops are absolutely the biggest, as far as Karen Reed's involvement in this goes, that Karen Reed's involvement is, her villains are the cops, and the cops should be sued without question. Sally Port footage has come, more Sally Port footage has come out that was FOIA'd. Just shows suspicious stuff going on in the police department. This is and this is where I put it back on the officers. People inside of a house can tell you whatever they want. They can tell you Roger Rabbit did it. They can tell you Fred Flintstone did it. They can tell you Betty Bopp did it. They can tell you Minnie Mouse did it. But that's up to the cops as to where they want to go with this. And that's where the cops really, and I've said this before. I said this about Proctor before. Proctor, these officers could have shut this down at the start and just said whatever. And honestly, in hindsight, I'm not trying to give these people advice, but it might have been better just to say it was a hit and run and never pin it on Karen at all. Because all Karen's done is basically stand up and put the story out there. She believes all these people are guilty and look what's happened. They actually would have been better off just saying it was a hit and run and they don't know who did it than actually trying to pin it on somebody. Once you involved Karen, now all of a sudden all Karen has to do is fight back and, get a journalist like Turtleboy out there, and then all of a sudden you have all these shows talking about it. If they had just said, oh, it was a mysterious hit and run, we don't know who hit her, that would have been their better option. They went with the whole, like, let's say it was Karen Reed. Let's say Karen Reed did it. Let's pin it on the girl. And then Karen's like, I didn't do this. Fuck you. You damn right I'm going to get lawyers. I'm going to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in funds. You know what I'm saying? They would have been better off with like John must have been hit at some point by somebody. We don't know. It's a mystery. And this left the thing unattended to, right? When they involved Karen Reed, all Karen Reed had to do was investigate it, start to speak out for herself, raise money, hire attorneys, and look what happened. A big trial. So realistically, from Karen's opposition, it might have been a better move just to say, oh my God, this is an unsolved hit and run. Karen, we don't know who did it. He must have been hit by a vehicle by somebody. I don't know. Maybe he walked outside. Maybe he was standing outside after he left. Maybe he got hit. I don't know. Because they went with the Karen Reed story, the Karen Reed saga. Now, all of a sudden, Karen Reed decides to fight back, raise her hand and say, guess what? I didn't do this. So it'd be interesting if they had gone with an alternative scenario. What I'm saying is that I'm not trying to help out the opposition of Karen Reed in any way. I'm just saying that statistically speaking, these people probably would have got away with all this shit, the Goodes, the Proctors, etc., if they never pinned it on anybody. But then that would have made the story a total mystery, even to the point where nobody even really followed the story, because it would just go down as your typical hit and run. Hit and runs happen all the time. Those hit and runs don't always get solved. Blair is in the house. So like I said, once you involve Karen Reed, once you start to put it on somebody, that person, Karen Reed, is going to fight back. She's gonna raise her hand and say, I didn't do this. You. Once it went that Karen Reed route, they had no idea what they were up against. A fighter. Like Kelsey Fitzsimmons is a fighter. Fighters. People that stand up and say, I didn't do this. I'm going to raise awareness. I'm going to get the word out there. And now all of these people in Massachusetts, especially Norfolk County, are household names as a result of this. And that's the bottom line. These people, all of them collectively, wanted to pin it on Karen Reed, say Karen Reed did it, point the finger at her, and look what happened as a result of this. She's now on the Today Show. Thousands of people tune in. Over 6,000 people were watching Melanie Little talk about this live for 5 hours last night. Over 6,000 people. 6,000 plus people watched Melanie Little last night live to listen to Melanie Little go over all of this stuff. That's how popular this story is. There's no question about it at all. Melanie Little, just an expert on all this stuff. Great show, big audience. It's fantastic. And that goes to show you how many people follow this stuff. And again, Karen Reed shouldn't have faced these charges, shouldn't have been blamed for this at all. And like I said, you have to expect somebody's going to fight back and not take this lying down. This thing blew up into far bigger of a story than ever imaginable. Raised far more money for her than ever imaginable, over $1 million through 2 trials. And now look at her on the Today Show, filing more and more lawsuits. And she probably has a couple more up her sleeve too. There's more to come. No question about it.
That I had to save my own life first. I can't do anything if I'm not free.
Right. So that was a great answer to that question. I always keep pausing her when she's blinking.
I had to fight for my freedom for years.
And that was a great point too. Like, she can't. The trials had more consequence than the civil suits for her. If, say, for example, somebody sued her in civil court and they actually beat her, it's a financial payout. Finances can be paid, whatever. But being on trial, going to jail for who knows how long, prison for who knows how long, that had to be fought first and foremost, without question about it. So it was good on Karen to do that. Wait for this to pan out. There's only so many fights you can take on at one time. There's only so many fights you can take on at the same time.
And I knew as it unfolded, I was never going to be able to just forget that this happened to me, that I was wronged in this way.
Right. And to that point, her life has been severely altered by all of this. Her life will never be the same again. It's been a great story of overcoming, a great story of perseverance. No question about it at all. But at the end of the day, this woman's life has taken a toll. It's been exhausting for her, without question. It's been a nonstop story for, I mean, look at it. It's 2026 right now. It's June 2026, and we're talking about something that happened in January 2022. That's a long time. That's a long time right there, folks. And this story, you know, look, these civil suits could be going on for another 2 years. We could still be here in June of 2028 talking about all of this. This is, and probably further. This is not a story that's going to go away, to say the least. And why should she forget? These people have done great damage to her life. Look, it is absolutely clear she didn't do this. There is absolutely no proof that she did this. And I don't care. There's a lot of anti-Karen Read people that are responding to my posts, other posts right now. They're resurgent online, no question about it. They have the right to post and have their opinion, even though they're wrong. But they're going to come back and say Karen did it because. The Michael Proctor texts, regardless of what Michael Proctor said, Karen Read still did it. You know, you're reading a lot of posts like that. Oh, what they said about Karen was terrible, but that doesn't mean Karen Read didn't still do it. You know, those are the kind of posts you're still going to read on this matter. So again, you know, Karen's life has been damaged because of this. She could have gone on to other things in her life, lived a life like all of us, going on about our days. But she spent her life basically, Dedham was basically her place of work. It was like a 9-to-5 job, you know, being in the Boston area, still to this day, working on her case every single day, working on information. This has been a non-stop thing for her for a long time. And you bet your bottom dollar she's going to file some lawsuits. No question about it.
I couldn't just go back to life as it was. I have to continue fighting for justice. The acquittal is deserved, but the wrongs have not been completely righted. They've been happening along the way, but
yeah, I would say too that, you know, what about justice for John O'Keefe and all of this? I keep pausing her at the worst moments. There we go. Okay, every time I go back to off the screen, I think like, oh my God, I got to fix that. Okay, that's much better. Yeah, and I mean, Katie Kat's got a point. You know, draining the swamp is a big part of this, and that swamp has been drained to a degree, which is great news. The problem is, though, is how much draining needs to be done. And what about justice for John O'Keefe and all of this, right? People forget Karen Read has been the biggest advocate. No one bigger than her. Others have been advocates for John O'Keefe in varying ways. Some believe she did it. She does not. I don't believe she did it. But Karen Read has been trying to get justice for John O'Keefe. Like I've always said, her and John were both victims that night. I don't care what the opposition says. The opposition is always going to be there to say, oh, she did it. No. Her and John were both victims that night in both ways. They tried to stop both of them, shut them down. Listen to me. This woman was going to go to prison if convicted. They spent millions of dollars. They paid Hank Brennan what, $500,000 in the second trial? They used taxpayer money to try to put a woman behind bars for a long, long time that didn't even do this. How sickening is that? How can you stand by and listen to that nonsense happen? It's ridiculous, is what it is, without question. Karen Read going to prison for the rest of her life for a crime she did. Can you imagine that? There's people in our justice system that are in prison right now, in jail right now for crimes they didn't commit. That is scary, ladies and gentlemen. Very scary. No question about it.
knew this was going to happen if I could get the help legally to do this.
Let's talk about that for a moment, Alan, because again, as we just saw in Laura's story there, Sergeant Goode's been fired.
Right.
Lieutenant Proctor fired. They're both gone.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are gone. A lot of people that are gone. That is no question about it. A lot of people have lost their jobs, resigned, moved on, been rehomed. A lot of that's taken place. And I would tell you this right now, a lot of that, if not any of that, takes place if Karen Read was truly guilty, because there'd be nothing to do.
The departments have said that there was wrongdoing. They've admitted that. From a legal standpoint, what do you precisely want to see happen here that has not already happened?
Well, it's a civil case. So the remedy is
Alan Jackson is keeping the beard. So we're now in season 3. This is the 2026 season. Alan Jackson has now gone back-to-back years with the beard.
the law speaks in dollars, but that's not what the ultimate goal is here. The ultimate goal is to ensure that we bring to the light the institutional biases, the institutional corruption.
That's what's scary about all of this is trying to do what they're doing, this undertaking of trying to bring together a light on corruption is insane. And honestly, it starts with elections, electing someone not like Michael Morrissey in office. A governor right now in Massachusetts that's actually been called out by Karen Read. Maura Healey's been called out by Karen, for not doing much about this. I also have a gripe with Maura Healey concerning the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case. I think that was absolutely atrocious. What went on there,
that permeates the Massachusetts law enforcement system. That's what this lawsuit's going to do. Ultimately, you can't, what Karen wants, you cannot write on a check, which is exposure.
Right. And I think that's a big thing too, is that, I think it would be nice for Karen to get money out of this. Obviously to cover legal expenses, that would be number one. Number two, give her some financial compensation for everything she's been through. This woman sold her house, for goodness sakes. But again, the exposure of all of this that's gone on. This is a story that is this is a national issue, even though it's a local issue, a state issue. Even though it happened in a town in a county in a state in the United States, it's a national issue. Because this is something that concerns every American citizen, because you mean to tell me people in power at any time can just basically say you did a crime and they can flex their power, and the next thing you know, you're on trial twice? This is a pretty deep issue. Yeah, you're right about that, Scott.
Exposure of the corruption that is the DNA of the Massachusetts State Police, of the Canton Police Department, which is...
You look at the state police right now, you look at Enrique Delgado Garcia, look what happened at their training facility, a couple of years ago. Look what moves they've made. They've gotten rid of boxing. This has been a department, there's always going to be corruption. There's always going to be wrongdoing in every police department. But, how much is that power used? And when that power starts to cover up things or misuse it, that's when it becomes a massive issue.
Evidenced by these two individuals in their text messages. They were in a position where they felt comfortable within their own family, the family of law enforcement, to send these vile text messages, to send these vile voicemails.
That is what the biggest issue is of all of this, is these are not just people that had these opinions. Having those opinions, obviously, is highly frowned upon, right, to say the least. However, these were people that were police officers on police time and were saying these things while conducting an investigation. This is obviously information exchange between a Canton police officer, a Massachusetts State police officer. This is dirty shit, is what this is. This is really dirty stuff. And then the volatile, horrible language. I read the first 21, 22 pages, then quit. Couldn't make it through it all. Never got to page 87. Read enough in the first 21 pages, quite honestly. this is insanity that these officers had these things to say and use the language that they did so freely. I mean, not that using it at all is ever acceptable, but the freeness of it was even more striking to me. The language that they would say, the opinions that they would make, obviously very shocking. Comments about women that were made, obviously, and obviously we know what they've said about Karen, which was out of control. Just horrible stuff, terrible stuff. And again, these are the people that are conducting your investigation.
That are reflective of a deeper problem in the culture. That's what we want to expose.
But to be clear, we're seeking money.
At the
Well, it's going to be, you want money, right? You must want money. It's going to be, obviously you guys are just scraping the barrels here because you guys are in it for the money, right? I mean, honestly, probably, yeah. But money is only, look, let's be honest. Obviously you want financial compensation out of this, no question about it. But there's a bigger moral standard here. This woman's civil rights have been violated. This woman has been put through several trials, endless hearings regarding this matter. This woman has been stained in the public eye because of this. Majority of the people are pro Karen Read, but still there's antis out there that smear her. And they have a right to do that, right? They have a right to their opinion, even though I disagree with it. But yeah, this is going to be about money, right? This is about money. It's all about the money.
end of the day, that's what the civil law requires. Yeah.
Charles, I'm going to bring you in here because you
be clear, we're seeking money.
At the end of the day, that's what the civil law requires. Yeah.
Charles, I'm going to bring you in here because you guys have always maintained she was framed, right? That's been your entire theory from the beginning here. But what evidence have you actually amassed over the past 4 years?
Okay, so I'm going to answer your question with a direction on where you can find this information. I would like you, in order to find out what evidence Karen Read and her defense team have amassed, I would like you to direct you in the direction of watching the first two trials, maybe watching microdots, maybe tuning into some of that stuff. Maybe that will tell you what information they may have amassed. Quite contrary, I would like to know what evidence and information has been amassed about Karen Read that was actually factual, that showed that Karen Read had actually killed John O'Keefe. That information today has not been provided. There is no information out there that shows that Karen Read did this. There's no logical way or plausible way Karen Read could have done this. Because when you look at John O'Keefe's arm and you observe his arm, there's one thing that's very clear to me, also to Dr. Marie Russell, is that that's clearly not taillight that caused the wounds on his arm. It looks to me like it's teeth marks from a dog and scratch marks from a dog. And when you look at the gash on the back of his head, can you in any way possibly show me where that could have possibly happened on the front lawn? To be clear, you want to talk about evidence or ask about evidence? First of all, you obviously don't know much about this case. Second of all, there's no evidence of taillight shattering and puncturing his arm, because taillight's not going to puncture his arm. That vehicle would have broken his arm. But why are there pattern wounds on his arm? Why does it clearly look like teeth marks and claw marks from a dog? Why is that dog missing? Why were there Google searches about how long to die in the cold? Why was more taillight magically appearing outside of that front lawn as time went on? Why was that taillight found weeks after or days after that crime scene was closed? What evidence has Karen Read and her defense team found? I asked this question. What evidence has been found that is factual that shows Karen Read ever did anything? Give me a fucking break.
Now, what evidence do you have to support that claim?
No, maybe I'm getting a little off mean with her and mean with him. I get fired up because I'm someone that's followed this case for a long time. I'm passionate about this case. I care about this case. Maybe she's just asking that, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just that, in fairness, this interview is before a national audience. There's people tuning in that probably have never heard this story before. And she's asking that as like a softball question for them to answer. I get it. But for all of us that have been following this case, it's just a little tough to hear those questions sometimes. It just really is. I'm sure she didn't mean anything by that question. Again, I'm sure it's just to give him an opportunity to answer that question and provide that on camera. But I get a little fired up sometimes because I'm just tired. What I'm tired of is I'm just tired of people out there think Karen Read did this. There's just, look, I do not in any way, shape, or form consider myself somebody that takes a position on a matter unless I'm absolutely positive that this situation shows me that Karen Read didn't do this. I don't see anything that suggests that Karen Read did this. I see more than enough information that shows that Karen Read did not do this. And that's what gets me fired up. Is I'm tired of anti-Karen Read people out there that every single time you show them a wound on the arm, it's clearly not taillight. There's clearly pattern wounds. There's clearly bite marks. There's clearly scratch marks. It's clear that his arm would have been broken. And you present this to these people, and they just sit there and it's like, Karen Read did it. Karen Read did it. She backed up and hit him. What? It just goes on and on and on. And I understand maybe I'm a little frustrated, but that's the way people are always going to be nonetheless. There's no question about it. Thank you so much, Sharon Keefe, AJ Do It, a 199, 1,000,000% Mazza. John wasn't hit by a car. But yeah, it's just extremely frustrating when you listen to this stuff time in and time out. And it's like, how many times do we have to go around on this issue? How many times do I have to show you why? And I'm not here to be, even though I'm a Karen Read supporter, I'm not here to present myself from a pro-Karen Read perspective, even though I have a pro-Karen Read perspective. Because when you look at the information, I cannot possibly compute where she did this. Even with Kelsey Fitzsimmons' case, I spent 4 hours on a Saturday once saying to myself, is there anywhere at all that I'm possibly wrong about Kelsey Fitzsimmons at all? And spent 4 hours live on camera on my own program, combing through all kinds of information, trying to find even a speck that I might have been wrong about Kelsey Fitzsimmons' innocence. Couldn't find it. Because I'm an objective thinker. I don't sit here, even for the first year I was following this case, and I would say, am I wrong about this? Am I wrong about that? Is there something I'm wrong about here? Have I misstepped here? Have I misstepped there? Is it possible, an anti-Karen Read person made this comment? Let me educate myself on this subject matter and see what I come out with. I would do independent research, look at it and say to myself, well, no, Karen Read, this isn't possible because, it's called being objective. It's called looking at information. And for the first year, I actually used to hear out anti-Karen Read people because I was learning. I was still learning. And so they'd bring up a point. I'd actually look into it. Like, okay, this person's made a point. Let's look into it. And then I'd study that subject matter. And the more I looked into it, I'd be like, oh, Karen's innocent. Their argument's moot. Obviously I didn't really ever take much about anti-Karen Read's arguments to begin with, but I like to be objective. I like to look at things, and figure things out and say, hey, am I wrong about this? Because if I'm wrong about Karen Read, then I don't want to be on camera supporting her. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the bottom line. I don't want to be on camera saying Karen Read didn't do it if she actually did it. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not gonna get on camera on a Saturday, 3 years after covering this, still talking about her innocence if she had actually done it. But here's the thing: as time has gone on, and as much as I've always believed in her innocence, I'm only more and more convinced of her innocence as time goes on. Even during the second trial, already being a big supporter, already doing fundraisers, already have met her a few times, all that stuff, I still was learning through the second trial because ARCA was doing demonstrations that were very informative. They were putting things more into a full spectrum presentation-wise. And I was like, man, wow, that's very interesting. The arm would have broke. This is how this would have happened. Aperture's Blue Man Group, demonstration really didn't do much for me. It was in slow-mo. It wasn't at real time. I felt that the demonstrations were very incomparable amongst one another. I just think that this thing has always been what it is. Karen Read didn't do it. Somebody else did. Who did it? It's up for debate. That's up for debate. Always has been.
Well, I mean, I think that Alan, during the criminal cases, let the whole world see the evidence that she had. But I think first and foremost, you look at the injuries that John O'Keefe suffered, and that to me is the key. Right.
So obviously I've heard this interview, but I kind of forget that he actually said that. But it's like the John F. Kennedy assassination. How do you know where the shot came from? How do you know how many shots were fired? Well, one of the ways of doing that is to actually look at John F. Kennedy's body and say, well, I think it came from here. I think it came from there. And then you build backwards off that. So you look at John O'Keefe's body, you look at the wounds, you look at the damages to his body, and you work back from there. You say, okay, what happened to this arm? Well, this looks like a dog bite. Like I said last week, if Karen Read didn't do this, let's just say again, if Karen Read was wrong about the McAlberts and the McAlberts were wrong about Karen Read, then there would have to be a third party that inserted itself and killed John O'Keefe. So basically, like I said last week, this guy was confronted by a canine on the front lawn. He was confronted by a wolf, a fox, a coyote, a bear, a monster from outer space, what have you. Then that's the only logical explanation, is that John O'Keefe was attacked by an animal or whatever, or Demogorgon from fucking Stranger Things while he was walking out of the car. I mean, that is the only logical conclusion. But if I cannot, looking at all this information, in any way, shape, or form, say I think Karen Read did this because the body doesn't make sense, and then I'm only able to conclude that it's most likely to come from inside the house because there's Apple Health data that shows that John O'Keefe went in the direction of that house and traveled up 3 flights of stairs. Again, that is not information that came out of thin air. That is information that has been presented. And that only brings a logical conclusion back to that house. And if that something happened in that house, then there's only a conclusion that can be made, that something happened inside that house. And if Karen Read dropped him off and Karen Read left, he would have had to have gone in that house. And if he had walked his way back out of the house, there's no ride for him. So that means somebody had to have taken him out and dragged him out there. That's these again, these people out there, anti-Karen Read, say, oh, leave these people, whatever. I understand, like their argument. I get it. But the fact is that if I look at this objectively, not taking a side between either party at all, either side of this, either way, how can I not come up with that logical conclusion? How can I not say, well, look at the Apple Health data. He went up 3 flights of stairs. Why were there mysterious phone calls all night, butt dials? Well, what happened there? Why were there short calls? Why did Brian Higgins go to the Canton Police Department to move cars and go inside an office for? Why did he go to a military base for? Why did this all happen? Was this stuff that people normally do? Does this happen on a daily night? Why did it happen on this particular night? If we look at the phone records, were there a lot of butt dials the day before? Is this typical? Is this common? And you don't. This is why the antis don't like it. But at the same time, I cannot come up with a logical answer to suggest that Karen Read did this because the wounds don't line up. And then there's data suggests he went in the house. How did he get back on the front lawn? And again, I'm trying to argue this objectively and fairly without bias. And I keep coming out with the same result every time, that the most logical outcome was that he went in the house and something happened in there. That's it. And I mean, that's just, again, an objective perspective on the whole matter. And again, there's other factors that just don't make sense. Meanwhile, look at Karen Reed. Let's look at what Karen Reed did that night. She left 34 Fairview. She went back to One Meadow Lane. She went to bed for a while. She woke up. Where the hell's John? She started making phone calls. They hopped in a vehicle with Carrie and Jen. They went out looking for him. You know, at the end of the day, Emily, see you in the house. Good to see you. Great interview with Adam Deitch. We were talking about that earlier. You did a fantastic job, Emily. It's been very great job. Great questions, great conversation. Absolutely fantastic job. We're proud of you, Emily. Yeah, you can't overthink their stories, but again, looking at it, no matter what way I quantify it, it just comes out the same way. It's yeah, I know. Right. Yeah. Whiffin's report says 3 flights didn't happen. Data was while on a moving car. I remember Turtleboy or Richie did they walked up that street and you couldn't possibly make the Apple Health data trigger that kind of reaction of 3 flights of stairs by simply walking up a road. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Those were injuries from the back of his head. He died from injuries to the back of his head, some ridged lead surface.
But you've had that for a while now, right?
So getting back to the ridged lead surface, this is where we look at the wounds of the back of the head and we say to ourselves, what could have caused that? If this happened, let's look at the Commonwealth theory. If this happened on the front lawn, what could have possibly caused that gash on the front lawn? I can't come up with like more than one possibility, if not one at all, right? If you go inside a house, well, maybe it was the weight bench, maybe it was a frame inside the house, maybe something could have hit something, maybe it was, whatever. There's more logical theories that could come out of actually being inside of a house causing that than outside of a house.
But the question was what evidence is, and you start there. And when you start there and you realize that the medical examiner, for example.
I mean, the gash on the back of his head, let's say, there's an alternative theory for this. Let's say the gash on his back of his head had nothing to do with what happened inside the house. There was nobody hit him. There was no fell and hit his head and that gash happened. What if they just were moving the body after it happened and his head hit the back of the stairs on the way up? I mean, that's possible. I mean, but again, that just proves again, there's more than 5 or 6 possible theories I can come up with for inside the house causing that gash than outside. Well, maybe a rock. I doubt it.
Testified at the criminal trial that these injuries that he had were inconsistent with the car strike. So you start there and then you say, what else could have happened? And then you look at the house and then you look at the people that were in the house and there are ridged surfaces in the house.
Right. So again, to that point, you can look inside the house and say, okay, maybe here, maybe there, maybe here. There's more than a couple of different areas that could happen. Then that kind of, again, lends itself to a higher probability outcome that it happened inside the house. Yeah. Yeah. Is able to see it caused his death. Correct.
There are relationships that John O'Keefe had with people in that house that were difficult relationships. And there's a lot of evidence that we've uncovered and that we're going to still uncover in this civil case.
Karen, let me come back to you for a moment here, because since the 2 trials, like what has life been like for you? I know you lost your house, you lost your car. Are you working right now?
No, I'm not working. I still don't have my license.
Yeah. And again, this woman's life has been pillaged. Not being able to work, and even again, how can she? I mean, anybody that follows this case, if you're able to work, have a job, you know how tough this can be to follow this case. Like me, I have to follow this stuff at night, lunch breaks, weekends. Barely I ever do a show during the work week. I can't do it. I just don't have the time, and it's tough to catch up. But you have her. That if she worked all day, how's she supposed to keep on top of her case? Working 8 hours a day, say, for example, you're exhausted by the time you get home. It's just too much. So
and I'm back working on the case. And, we've brought in civil lawyers, but this case is so comprehensive that we need all hands on deck. I mean, I'm working on the case every day, and I don't know that I really ever took time off, and I don't know that I felt like I wanted to take time off. I want this to be over, but it's not done yet.
I wanted, because we saw the throngs of supporters.
Yeah, so many supporters would show up because more people believed in Karen Read's innocence than Karen Read's guilt. Just wanted to get that out there.
Really believed, just as the jurors did. But you have to know that when you walk down the street, there are a lot of people who look at Karen Read and who think, oh, someone that got away with killing her ex-boyfriend who was a cop.
This was a wonderful moment on that show. Oh, look, there goes Killer Karen. And look at Karen's face right now at this point. It's just like she dices up this question like she's cutting carrots and celery sticks.
How do you go through life knowing that there are lots of people who, despite what the jury said, still think?
She look at it. That's like the look at her reaction here.
You go through life knowing that there are lots of people who, despite what the jury said,
look at her. She's that's like the bleep you reaction right there. I'll answer this stupid question. Sure.
I still think you did it and you got away with it.
I've not had any evidence that there's lots of people who
throws it right in this question. She's got the snarky look on her face like, I haven't seen any evidence that there's lots of people. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Feel that way. I mean, I have lived more low key in the last year. I've just struggled to not have the adrenaline that I had during trial, but I have no interactions, no matter where I go. The grocery store, a restaurant, Newbury Street in Boston, any hotel or restaurant I eat at. I don't pay for meals.
And this has been points been made as well. These people mostly exist online.
Get discounts everywhere.
They mostly exist online. You go online and you see the anti-Karen Read people. When you show up to court, how many times did you show up to court and there were anti-Karen Read people there? If you saw them, they were usually sitting, in support of the O'Keefes, right? But, there weren't people showing up there like there were in mass for Karen Read people. We had the blue shirt raid in the 2024 trial towards the end. Karen Read's guilty, blah, blah, you heard all that. But you never really see it. Even outside the Karen Read trial, you never really saw it all that much. That was about it. It was never really present in public, ever.
My parents get help taking grocery store. I don't have interactions. I have not seen lots of people. I haven't seen one. The support isn't relegated to what you saw at the courthouse. It's throughout Massachusetts, and it happens
so you've
when
never
I travel.
heard from one person who...
Not one. Well,
he's like, I find that hard to believe. I imagine that people aren't picketing outside your home every single day in the Boston area saying, Killer Karen. No. What you see online is not necessarily a reflection of reality.
There were...
Have you been on the internet?
Okay, great question. That was his first good question.
I mean,
because that's where they all exist. They all exist in the internet. Emily C says the antis exist in a teeny corner of a teeny corner. I live in Norfolk County. I'm out all day, every day, and no one has ever recognized me. And our side is a billion times bigger than theirs. I think that's a great point. Exactly. Maybe I'll go to Legacy Place today and do some shopping and see if anybody recognizes me. And probably no one. Actually, I did walk around Legacy Place one time, and I don't think one person even recognized me until we all got to dinner at the some kind of yard house or something. I forget the name of the place. I forget the name of the place. I can't remember. It's a chain, big chain. But nobody recognized me. I was walking in stores. Nobody was like, "Oh my God, it's Mazza." Nobody was like, "Bleep you, Mazza. I've watched your shows and I can't stand you. And I've wanted to tell you to your face for years, man. You MazzaMedia. Karen Read did it, man." Yeah, never. Exactly. Oh, nice. Nice. That's cool. Whole Foods, a good place.
Have you looked at any of the...
Oh, yes. Yeah, okay. I've seen tweets. I have not interacted with anyone. And yes, there were people,
and I barely interact with those tweets because I get them every now and then myself. I never interact with them, ever.
pink shirts, and there was maybe for every 50 pink shirts, there was someone in a blue shirt who had many of them ties to people on the other side of this case.
Right.
That's what Jennifer's gonna care.
You know, ties to people in the case, or then you have like the anti-Turtleboy people that just hate Turtleboy so much. They're like, Turtleboy is this, this, and that, and then they just hate Turtleboy. There's always those two dynamics.
Because you dated for 2 years. You got so close with his family.
You
his
had
nieces,
people,
his-
believe it or not, people from anti-Karen Reed that were saying Karen Reed looked absolutely horrible physically. They were attacking Karen Reed's physical appearance. These are people that condemn Michael Proctor's tweets about Karen, when Michael Proctor's tweets about Karen have also attacked her physical body. And that, to me, just is disgusting. Karen Reed looked absolutely fantastic, and looked as good as she's ever looked.
nephews. You went on vacation together, right? This is somebody that you loved. And yet, I think for a lot of people, somehow he gets lost sometimes in this conversation.
That is a fair argument. I think that he has gotten lost in this, but I think the problem is, like I've said in the past, is I think that so much the Karen Reed being brought into the forefront of this has caused her to fight more for herself than for him, because she's trying to fight off, for the 2 years she was in trial, trying to fight off charges more so than anything else. So that's been her biggest thing, is she has the first not go to jail, not go to prison. You know, like that's the thing she had to fight for years. This thing was basically stalemate. Justice for John O'Keefe was stalemated. Her ability to advocate, be a voice for him, was basically stuck in a battle of trying to fight for herself. She had to fight for herself for years before she could now go on the more offensive here, file civil suits, try to bring light to John O'Keefe's case. So this woman's basically had a stagnated life, you know?
Well, he's not lost. He's the reason we're doing this.
I think people sometimes wonder, are you doing this for John, or are we trying to go after institutional corruption? Are we trying to get you money damages?
Well, I mean, in fairness, I'd say probably everything.
What is the goal?
John was the victim of this institutional corruption.
And it's almost like, I understand, this is where I get a little upset with the media too. Steve, what's going on, man? Good to see you. This is where I get a little argumentative myself, because again, it's like, is this about money? Are you really a good, honest person fighting for John? Are you really just someone that maybe got away with murder and is just looking for damages now? You know, that kind of seems to be like I don't know. I don't like it.
Corruption. And we're the voice for John. And I have lived.
And no matter what they tell you, free Karen Reed is justice for John O'Keefe, and is the only correct path for true justice for John O'Keefe.
Nearly daily, John's final moments, and what happened to him, what was on his phone, what was the temperature of his phone, what was his interactions that I had experienced prior to his death with members of the family that lived in that house. And this all revolves around John. I can speak about my personal memories with John, and his family can speak to them as well. But I implore any one of John's family or friends to point to any moment that I wasn't loving or caring with John and his adopted niece and nephew.
Now, great answer publicly, but as we know, the reality of any relationship, there's going to be arguments, there's going to be quarrels, there's going to be disagreements, there's going to be verbal fights, throwdowns. Obviously, that happened at some point, you know, obviously between her and him, and that's fine. But that doesn't make her a murderer. You know, having an argument with your boyfriend, having breakups, fights, disagreements. Baker Raid, what's going on, guys? Good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. I hope Baker's down in Tennessee at Dollywood right now, hanging around with the Glare and the Expert. The other Mary B, they're all down there right now having themselves a good time. But yeah, I mean, obviously couples are going to have their arguments, their fights, their disagreements. They're going to be mad at each other. You know, obviously any relationship has that. You know, that happens. No question about it. But again, that does not make you a murderer. That does not make your relationship necessarily volatile. It just means that disagreements happen. So, you know, it happens. It does. It's a part of life. You know, relationships go that route. It's It's obviously stuff that happens. She yelled at him a few times. Obviously not going to be something that doesn't happen in a relationship. All of us guys, it's just like, we've all had that, but it's okay. It's called reality. That's life. I've seen it. My grandparents used to argue all the fucking time amongst each other. I've told that story on the show before. They'd argue, they'd bicker. My grandma would shake her head like my grandfather was wrong. My grandpa would look at me and shake his head like my grandma was wrong. It happens. It just happens. But that doesn't make you a murderer. You look at every relationship. Every relationship's had your arguments, your disagreements, your arguments. And at the end of the day, it doesn't mean every relationship ends in a murder or assault, right? And that's important to remember here. And I think Karen Reed, for the better part, like she's saying here, has been, a good, honest woman, has been good. Yeah, okay, maybe a quarrel here and there with John. Perfectly fine, understandable. But the other side tries to make it out to seem like, whoa, she got mad at him this one time, which means she did it. And that's always where I think they try to run to the end zone with the ball to try to score a touchdown, when it's just, again, nothing indifferent than any other relationship that's ever existed out there. No question about it.
And
what was he like?
John was very easygoing and kind of shy, quiet. And he just liked to watch Boston sports and drink a few beers. And he was funny. He had a really good sense of humor. And he was very dutiful to his niece and nephew.
Now, I want to just talk about Karen Reed from I want to essentially do not a physical, what's the terminology we want to use here? Body language analysis of her. If you look at the way she talks about John.
Like to watch Boston sports and drink a few beers. And he was funny. He had a really good sense of humor.
Do you see when she talks, now observationally, do you see any anger with John? Do you see her looking back at John in a negative way? Do you see her angry, upset with him? Really, when you look at her talk about him, she kind of feels like her mind's recalling great times, great memories. Like, I remember, he's just, that's John. That's my John. That's John's John. He drinks beer and watches football, and he's a laid back, kick back guy. That's John. It kind of seems like there's a peace. There's kind of a peace there, isn't there? There's almost a peace when she thinks back about John, where she feels like he was a good guy. Was he perfect? No one's perfect. No, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. Karen's not perfect. I'm not perfect. We're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But she looks back, and there's a lot of peace there about the memories. There's no anger. There's no animosity. There's no, John was the best guy in the world. I loved him so much. John was there's no fibber. There's no BS. There's no, oh my God, I love John. Oh, I love John to death. There's nothing like that. That's there's no overacting. There's no acting at all. There's no over answering there. It's just a casual answer. John was just a great guy. John would drink beer, watch football, laid back guy. He liked to do this and that. I remember spending time with his niece and nephew, and they were great. Just good times, just good times. It's answered efficiently. It's answered effectively. She doesn't put rocket boosters on the comments and animate herself like John was absolutely the most wonderful person ever, and I would never kill him. It's not like that. And I'm doing that exaggeration there for a little bit of comic effect, but at the same time, again, it's an honest, sincere answer. I buy it. And I'd have to say, if she actually did what she's accused of, I would not see that kind of response. Like you've seen maybe other people in interviews. We love John. Oh, John was my best. John was John. Oh, we love John. Oh, John, we loved. John was, oh my God. John, do you remember when John, oh my God, John? There's none of that. There's no bullshit. There's no bullshit in the answer. Okay. She's just like, he drinks beer and watches football. That's what he always did. He's a great guy. He's laid back, kick back guy. Miss him. It's an honest answer. There's no show. There's no facade. There's none of that at all. And that's what makes me, again, buy into Karen Read more, even though I'm already a supporter, because I think this is not only did she answer it with her words, but her physical stature, and you can tell the way she's looking down right there. She's accessing sincere memories. There's no hatred. There's no regret. Like she's trying to hide that she actually did this. I don't see that at all. I recall a very gushing answer from someone who loved him and has 0 pictures with him. Yeah, exactly. Like she doesn't take a picture and hold it and like, this was John. We were in a relationship 20 years ago. Yeah, I know. I got the reference, Emily.
And he was very dutiful to his niece and nephew.
See, straight up answer, good, honest answer, direct to the point, very sincere. And also looking to share information about John in a good light as well.
I mean, he did everything. They were involved in anything they wanted to be involved in, and he tried incredibly hard with them and gave up his bachelorhood, changed his trajectory on the Boston Police Department to care for them. So he was incredibly sacrificial.
We know you're fighting the civil.
Yeah, great answer. And again, I can't say enough. Yeah, I did like the word dutiful as myself as well. Very much so.
Suit that's been filed by his family, but if you could talk to his family today.
Yeah, so this is where, of all the things that enraged me,
he tried,
and you guys saw me go spicy Mazza there for a while, this is the worst part of it all right here.
Incredibly hard with them and gave up his bachelorhood, changed his trajectory on the Boston Police Department to care for them. So he was incredibly sacrificial.
We know you're.
So here it comes. This is the question here. It just made me go crazy when I heard it.
Fighting the civil suit that's been filed by his family, but if you could talk to his family today, what would you say to him?
If you could talk to his family today, what would you say to them? Some of the anti-Karen Read people acted like they had got an interception and ran to the end zone for a touchdown with this answer. But I think the bottom line here is this. Karen Read is being sued by that family. And that's the bottom line. There is nothing to say to them. The O'Keefe family, who I have not disparaged on this program, will not disparage at all now, has the ideology that Karen Read did this. They don't believe Karen. They believe the Commonwealth narrative. They do not believe in Karen Read's stories at all. They are of the belief that she did this. They are so steadfast in their beliefs of what they believe Karen Read did that they have filed a lawsuit against her. Asking this question is irrelevant, and to me, it was absolutely ridiculous and preposterous to ask. She's being sued by them. There's nothing to say to them at all. It's basically see you in court. I mean, because this is a court matter. That's what it is. There's nothing, if the O'Keefe family was watching or seeing this, what would you say to them? Well, I'd like to say to them, maybe we can go out for ice cream, hang out, go to the carnival, get some cotton candy, get some fried dough, try to win some teddy bears, ride the Ferris wheel. I mean, come on. This is a very serious matter. The O'Keefe family has very strong opinions that have not wavered. The O'Keefe family sat through 2 trials. They saw both sides of the argument. They did not believe in the defense narrative at all, and hold firm that Karen Read did this, up and to including filing a lawsuit against her. So there's nothing to say to them. There's just nothing to say. And some of the anti-Karen Read people saying, oh my God, she wouldn't say anything to the family. I mean, honestly, I would say this. I would not, if I was on Karen Read's side, it's not my place to recommend what she does or doesn't do. But I would say, hey, I owe him nothing, because if she said, I want to tell them I love John and didn't do this, and someone in the house did, they'd add it to the lawsuit. That's a good point. I mean, really, at the end of the day, her only affiliation with that family was through John. And at the end of the day, I don't understand what needs to be said to them. I mean, Alan Jackson said it best to Mrs. O'Keefe during the second trial. Mrs. O'Keefe, I'm very sorry for your loss, and I have no questions for you. That's all. Perfect. It was perfect what Alan Jackson did during the second trial. This is a tragedy for the O'Keefe family. I mean, whether you love them, hate them, or lukewarm on them, whatever, they did lose a family member, which is tragic. I hate that. I hate to see that for anybody. That happened. That's a loved one, obviously. But given the fact that this family has an ideological difference with her, is suing her, it just, there's nothing to say. And for anti-Karen Read people to get there and say, oh, gee, she couldn't say anything nice to their family. Can you believe that she wouldn't say anything nice to their family at all? Can you believe that Karen couldn't give her condolences to the poor O'Keefe family? Like, they're trying to sensationalize it and make it seem like, see, this is further evidence of the wicked witch that Karen Read is. She wouldn't give condolences to the O'Keefe family. She said she had nothing to say to the poor O'Keefe family, which further proves that Karen Read is an evil, wicked witch. That's the argument that anti-Karen Read is trying to make from this. I've seen the tweets. I'm not going to mention who tweeted them, but I've seen essentially to some degree that kind of variation of tweets against Karen Read. But like I say, my argument is this. Pardon my French here. They're fucking suing her. They're suing her. They're taking her to court. She's having to pay for lawyers to fight against this very family. There's nothing to be said to them. There is no condolences to them. Karen Read's condolences are to the loss of the man she loved, John O'Keefe. But the family doesn't have her back. They have a different ideological perspective on this. And they're suing her. So there's nothing to say. I have nothing to say to them is a good answer, because you're suing me. Not only do you guys think I did this, you're taking me to court over it. What is she supposed to say? Let's go bowling together? Let's go to a roller disco? Let's go watch a movie in the movie theater? Let's barbecue? I mean, what is she supposed to, what is the response supposed to be here, other than, well, they're suing me? It's a terrible situation. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm sure she'd probably say, I wish they had my side. I wish they shared. I wish they believed me. I wish they believed me. I wish they had my side. I wish they had the same ideology as I did. I wish that they would see my argument in all of this, but they don't. It's a terrible situation. It's a bad situation. And for me, as a Karen Read supporter, it's always been one of the hardest things to watch, is to just have John's family ideologically on the other side of that aisle, because it bothers me to see the antis just say, see, we got the O'Keefe family on our side. I hate to see that. I do. I like this argument by Emily. Not for nothing, you are not required to like your boyfriend's family, even in normal circumstances. That's a great, great comment. Mad Mazza might be my favorite. Yeah. I think we have an anti here. Wicked Witch, I agree. Karen Read, in my opinion, is evil. You're entitled to your opinion, but your opinion is wrong. Well, we won't block you for now. We'll give you an opportunity to speak your mind for now. But yeah, it's a situation where it's like, how can you sit there in any way, shape, or form and be like, well, yeah, great, I love their family. It's just, again, it's an ugly, ugly situation between Karen Read and that family. It truly is. And unfortunately, look, it's never going to, I don't think there's ever going to be a reconciliation. I don't ever foresee the O'Keefe family changing their ideological standpoint. I think that they're going to hold firm till, through their lives, what they believe. But I just, again, it's never going to be repairable. It's a very damaged situation.
I don't have anything to say to his family. I interacted with them for several years. John and I had actually dated a long time ago when we were in our early 20s, and I was caring and I believe generous with them, with my time, and we did spend a lot of time together. And
even the fact that Karen was still around them shortly after what happened to John, before it sounds to me like he was hit by a car or whatever might have happened. Karen Read, if she had, let's say for the purposes of argument, Karen Read had actually done it, it would take a lot of courage to actually show up in their house after doing that. I would honestly say someone who didn't do it and believed they didn't do anything wouldn't have any reason to be fearing being over their home, because ideologically you'd think that they were on your side, or there would be no reason for them to perceive you as not being on their side or perceive you as being the killer of their son. So again, to Karen's degree, I just see more information that shows me her innocence.
They experienced who I am, and they know who I am.
Like that answer right there. They experience who I am. They know who I am. They've seen enough of me, again, in argument's sake, to say, well, to be able to sit there and say, well, do I really think she did this? And that's what's always kind of been intriguing to me is, has the O'Keefe family, I don't know their thought process, have they ever said to themselves, like, do we really think she did this? We've known Karen for a while. Has there been tendencies, or have they just maybe or they maybe recall a few arguments or occurrences where maybe Karen and John got into it, and like, gee, I guess it wouldn't be far-fetched for her to do it. I don't know. I don't know what their thought process is.
Beyond the civil suit, what comes next for Karen Read? What are you going to do for the rest of your life?
I don't think we're done discussing law enforcement, corruption, what's wrong with Massachusetts, where else is it?
So let's say you win the civil suit, then what comes next for you personally?
Personally, I'd like to keep talking about what I've experienced. I haven't really been free enough, especially with all these lawsuits, to say all that I've experienced. And I think it would be a waste for me to just disappear and go live on an island, although I would like to do that.
We hope that you will come back.
I like it. Yeah, living on an island sounds good to me. That'd be pretty fun. All right, so that was the Today Show from what had occurred there and what had been said there. Let's talk about. There's so much stuff to talk about. It's unbelievable. There's just so much here to go over. Let's see what we got. What do we got? I want to play the Bettero News Nation interview. Is what I want to play now. Microdots had the following to say. He said the two hosts of the Today Show asked Karen the most out-of-touch, completely absurd questions imaginable that in no way made contact with reality. I can see why they've lost 40% of their audience over the last decade. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Let's go to this. Let's go to Karen Read on Channel 5 talking about Maura Healey. So she conducted an interview with them and had some things to say. So let's talk about that. All right, let's go to this video, that video, that video. Do I not have this saved? 1 second. Let's see what we got here. The Karen Read Channel 5 interview. Let's find that. Not there. There it is. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's share our screen. This is where she talks about Maura Healey. Okay, this just got released. This was on the news last night, by the way. It was on following the Knicks and the Spurs game 2.
I believe the rot, in my opinion, in Massachusetts law enforcement goes all the way
to the top. So right then and there, she's absolutely condemning Maura Healey. I had an issue with Maura Healey, especially too, in the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case. The fact that Martha Coakley represented Kelsey Fitzsimmons and Maura Healey is just like, well, just that nonsense all the time.
These messages I've learned, I have read personally with my 2 eyes, Michael Proctor's transcripts of his testimony before the Massachusetts State Police Trial Board. And according to the powers that be, and from Michael Proctor himself, when his texts about me, about receiving a gift for favors he did for the Alberts during the investigation, when these messages were revealed, it went right up the flagpole all the way to the colonel at the state police.
So my attitude about, like, a lot of people try to dispute the involvement of how many people were involved in this. My attitude about this whole case is that it's one person above another doing a favor for the person beneath them. And it just keeps person A asks person B who's above them, person B asks person C asks person D, D to E, E to F, all the way up. And that's how it gets up to the chain. Because what happened was, this started off as a small town matter that involved the state police, that eventually involved the DA, that eventually involved the governor's office. That's my personal opinion of this whole matter. I think that I don't know. People say, well, everyone couldn't have possibly been involved over this one incident. Yes, but it's not like all of them had played a full role in all of it. I think at every single level, there's a partial level of involvement. And I think they got to the point where they realized, hey, one of our guys at the state police, he's really screwed up here. He's really overstepped his bounds. And the lady that he did this to, she's fighting back. She's coming at him with everything. There's this guy, Turtleboy, that's talking about this. And all these other YouTube creators are starting to talk about it too. And there's this guy, Bettero, out there, and he's talking about it. There's just a lot of people talking about this right now. And they're talking about Proctor. They're talking about the state police. They're talking about the Canton police. Morrissey's office has now done some, I think that's kind of how it got up to her office. And it's gone on and on and on. And that's how I think that there's not, the involvement is due to the level of interest, and the level of interest is due to the level of involvement, if that makes sense. Interest is involvement, involvement is interest. Meaning, the governor is interested because this involves her state. This involves her state police. And they cannot, in any way, shape, or form, allow this story to get out. And if it does get out, what they want to do is they want to contain it. The Canton Police Department's not bad. Sergeant Goode acted inappropriately. The Massachusetts State Police didn't do anything bad. Michael Proctor did. Uri did. Tully did. The DA's office didn't do anything bad. They were just misled by the state police. The state police, again, had a few bad apples. We're going to get rid of those bad apples. And that's the problem solved. So what they're doing is they're just basically, they're covering up each level of it. So there was an argument made by one of the McAlberts on his interview, and he said, yeah, people think all these people were involved. Yes, they were. But they were all had smaller roles to play. It's like if you watch a movie without a main character, it just has a lot, like maybe Sin City or Pulp Fiction or just something with a lot of characters in it, right? There's a full 2-hour movie, but the full 2 hours is not following John Wayne or Angelina Jolie or Charlize Theron or Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's following multiple people, Bruce Willis and a few other characters. It's an ensemble. It's a matter of people doing their part because it's like a security guard at Gillette Stadium. There's people all over the stadium that are covering each section. They're all doing their part. Security guard's not covering the entire stadium at all times, but they are covering the 200 section. They are covering the 100 section or the 300 section. They're doing their part of a whole. And that's how I see this cover-up taking place. It's people that are doing favors for people across the board and up the ladder. And I think that Maura Healey is aware of what's going on. They've had their closed doors meetings. And what they're concerned about, I don't think that Maura Healey is concerned about covering up what happened as much as she is concerned about covering the asses of the state of Massachusetts. This information cannot get out. It's like when they had the overtime scandal There was also, I think, a firefighter somewhere in the state at one time that had lied about his physical disability, but actually was a bodybuilding competitor. Things like that happen from time to time where it's not the fire, and it wasn't the fire department's fault. It's not the fire department, it's that firefighter. That firefighter was bad, and that's it. You cut ties with the loose ends. Michael Proctor in all of this was the middleman. I've always argued he was the middleman. He is the difference between any belief system in the McAlberts, the Canton Police, the governor, the DA's office. He's the middleman. And when you want to cut the tension, you cut the middle. And when you cut the middle, both sides disperse back to the left and the right, and there's no more tension. That's basically what I believe happened, is that Michael Proctor, despite Michael Proctor being as irredeemable as he is, and as deserving of the punishment and suits that he is getting, Caitlin, it's good. Good to see you. Despite everything that he deserves coming to him, I still believe that Michael Proctor, at the highest level, is being used as the fall guy so that other parties don't have to bear as much responsibility, if any responsibility at all, for whatever happened. So basically, it's like, look, Proctor's the middleman. He no matter, like, for example, no matter what the Canton Police may or may not have done, it was still enabled and accelerated by the state police, and that's Michael Proctor, right? So I think that they basically cut Proctor out and said, let's just get him out of here. Get him out, fire him, terminate him. Let's cut our freaking losses. That's it. Get him out of here. Get him gone. And then that eases up the tension for everybody's responsibility. So that way, Maura Healey can sit there and say, well, we're trying to just make sure our state police officers are doing the best job. And that's how they try to cut and stop in its tracks what Karen and Alan Jackson are talking about in their Today interview, which is trying to climb the ladder to fight corruption and expose corruption, because basically they're like, yeah, look, it's a Proctor thing. That's a Michael Proctor thing. We're aware of what Michael Proctor did. We've cut our ties with Michael Proctor. Whatever's being argued out there, we've already handled. It's a Michael Proctor. It's not a state police issue. It's a Michael Proctor issue. It's not a Massachusetts State Police Training Academy issue. It's the people that train Enrique Delgado Garcia issue. That's what they do. They let people take the fall, and that's Michael Proctor's own fault, because he over-involved himself in this. He could have sat there at some point, been an honest officer, and said, I'm not going to have anything to do with this. I'm not going to involve myself in this. And once he got involved, it was all in on Karen from that point. Well, Michael's gone and done this. We gotta make sure we just, it all falls on him. Just let him. He's going to be the Lee Harvey Oswald. Don't let anybody talk about a second quote unquote shooter. It's Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald did it. That's it. And that's what's happened to him. In his particular case, he had great dirt on his hand that's beyond dispute. But that's what I mean. Proctor could probably be a great informant for the FBI if he spilled the beans. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody that would be more of a quintessential person, really. I think nobody knows about above and below him on the ladder of involvement more than him. But again, good point, Kat. Yeah, good point on that. Great point, actually. He received excellent scores. Yeah. But again, I just think that they tried to, this is Proctor, it's these other officers. That's it. Anything they can to try to just keep the Massachusetts State Police looking good. Now, I don't root against the Massachusetts State Police. I want the Canton Police, the Massachusetts State Police, all local police departments all across our country to be as good as and effective as they're at their job as possible. I don't want to sit here and say, gee, I can't believe Proctor and Goode texted these things. Gee, I can't believe members of the MSP are this way, or the members of the Canton Police. My goal is not to be anti-police. I'm actually pro-police. I'm anti-police corruption. There was a woman that's anti-Karen Reed person that's not too notable, but you might recognize her profile. I won't mention it because I don't want her to be singled out. I'm not that kind of person. But she made an argument that you people are just anti-police. That's not true. I mean, ultimately, I don't think anybody here is calling for the police department to be destroyed. And if anything, people are calling for the police department to be renewed, reinvigorated, ironed out, in a much better place than it once was before, and that's always been my argument. I support the police. I want cops to be safe, do their job right, go to work every single day, handle every situation they possibly can correctly. But I do understand reality and that things do get crazy for officers as well. And that there are officers out there that do make bad decisions, that do use their power in ways that are not good. And that's why I always remember to say when I hear that is, no, we're not anti-police. We're anti-police corruption. This is about police corruption. This is about officers using their power in a manner that is not appropriate, is not correct, and is not effective for how things should be handled. And that's it. That's really, at the end of the day, the whole argument. It's nobody wants to sit here at the beginning of the day and say, oh, geez, I just hope that we can, hope every department out there is terrible. I have my issues with the North Andover Police Department. You do too. Canton Police Department, you do too. Massachusetts State Police, you do too. But I don't hate those departments. I just want those departments to be better. I sat among, the North Andover Police Department recently at Kelsey Fitzsimmons' trial. Some of those officers were very nice to me, quite honestly. And I don't know if those officers are just not seeing the whole picture or just taking their side to support Noonan in that matter, but they were just the way they were, supporting Noonan, the brothers in the blue, which I didn't appreciate, but I didn't get any dirty looks from any of the officers. A couple of them did. A couple of them gave me dirty looks. I don't have memberships because I just never set it up, and then I don't do enough shows that are members only. So I just feel that why have a members only? Why have memberships if I'm not going to do members only shows or have members only content? That's how I kind of feel about it. So I know in the past I've just said to people, super chats are there. If you ever want to throw a super chat up, you can always throw a super chat my way. I don't beg for super chats, but I would say. I don't do memberships, but sorry. Yeah, maybe in the future we'll see. But if I did shows more often, no, thank you so much, Gen X. Super chats. I have a Cash App as well. Let me fully grift here. Maz is gonna grift. Hold on. I don't grift often. There's a Cash App right there. You can Cash App. You can super chat me. I can grift. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, if you ever want to send something my way as a nice little gift, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Erica. But yeah, Cash App, super chats are available for you to send my way if you'd like. Other than that, yeah, I don't throw it around too much. I appreciate the anything people send my way, but again, I don't usually let it scroll. I deserve to grift. Yeah, exactly. I have kind of like I never took the thing off. Let's get it out of there. Yeah, I don't usually ask too much. Like, I just don't want to be that way too much. I probably should, though. I should probably just come on every show and like super chat me, Cash at me, and just be like, whatever, but it's all good. People send something my way, I appreciate it, but I don't usually ask. But yeah, I don't do memberships because I don't usually have the time. But again, not all these officers are bad out there. And I'm sure, like I said, I have a buddy that's a cop in New Jersey. Jen, thank you so much. Appreciate the super chat. You're the best, Maz. The 2 purple hearts. 1, 2 for Kelsey. Thank you. Yeah, Blackstone Grill's been great. But again, these paying my non-membership dues coming from Emily C. She says, dues to one of my favorites, drama-free corners of the internet. Thank you, Emily C. Appreciate that. Yes, I don't think all cops are bad. And I have a buddy that's a cop in New Jersey. He's talked about a lot of corruption in New Jersey. Now the merch has got two t-shirts are getting going right now. I got 2 t-shirts done. I just want to do a quality inspection before I finalize those shirts. So the shirts are done. I'm just doing a quality check. I'm just making sure I like the sizing of all the lettering and everything before I release that. So I might try to do that tomorrow, and then have a release, and then get the two first designs are done. And then thank you, Elizabeth Smith, for the Cash App as well. Thank you so much. I'll see if there's a message. We'll take a Cash App and Super Chat break here. No good grifting, Mazza. 1 second. Let's see if there's a message. Thank you, Sarah B. Creative. Threw a dime for the top shelf. P.S. I want a T-shirt. We'll get those, don't we? We'll get those T-shirts. We got MazzaManiac in Massachusetts. Emily says, Elizabeth says, for thank you, and sends a Cash App. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yes. So appreciate that, Sarah B. Creative. Yeah, we'll work on the shirts, and then we will we'll get those released. And then people can buy the shirts. They're going to be black shirts. There'll be regular T-shirts. A lady said to me she wanted a V-neck shirt, so I created V-neck shirts as well. So standard T-shirts, V-neck T-shirts. There's hoodies. There's a heavier T-shirt that's like almost like a sweater, but it's not a hood. And then there's I think I have a standard long sleeve shirt that's not heavy. It's like a light T-shirt. So I got 5 designs per design. So there's MazzaManiac, and then there's Massachusetts. So that's all coming out there. And then I'm working on some others. Yeah. So there's some people. I think any tops, not yet. V-neck, like I said, V-neck. Someone said to me specifically, Mazza, make sure you do V-neck. So I did that. And then I'm being asked to do tops. So maybe I can do that too. So I'll put that on the list. I'm just looking at what people are asking for, and then I'm doing it. So I'm not going to do a shirt that has the MazzaMedia logo on the front because I don't like that the background of the logo is darker than the shirt. So I did not like that. So I put it on the shirt as a badge, almost like the Ghostbusters have a patch on the side. So I kind of did it Ghostbusters style, being a Ghostbusters fan, but I'm only doing those for the short sleeves. I'm not doing it for the hoodies or the long sleeves. That's not happening. So that's that. So guys, thank you for the super chats. Sharon, Erica, Emily C, Sarah B. Creative, and then Elizabeth sent a Cash App. Thank you all. All right. So I appreciate that, guys. Thank you. And then we'll get going here with Channel 5. So let's take a look here.
And the district attorney was informed. I mean, the governor, Maura Healey, has.
Let's back this up. I just want to catch up.
Investigation when these messages were revealed. It went right up the flagpole, all the way to the colonel at the state police. And the district attorney was informed. I mean, the governor, Maura Healey, has publicly commented just on the vile and lewd messages about me, and not commented publicly that I've seen anywhere about what actually unfolded and how this might have affected his work ethic,
Yeah. So that's usually what you see a lot, is that Maura Healey is just like these texts are horrible and terrible. And I mean, that's great. I mean, Anti-Karen Reid's even admitting that themselves. The text messages are horrible, but they're not, I'm talking about from the state level. They're not really looking into like, man, doesn't this affect a bias in how this case was tried? Doesn't this, like, what's going on in Norfolk County? If I'm the governor, what's going on in Norfolk County? Why aren't I picking up the phone and talking to Michael Morrissey and saying, you guys are trying this case again? We have evidence of text messages from Michael Proctor saying these things, and you guys are trying it again? We can't even prove this guy was objective based on what he's written. And no matter how much, and David Yannetti, Eliza Little, Alan Jackson, Bob Alessi, repeatedly during hearings would make great points. They would almost just say, this is why the case should be dropped. This is why this shouldn't go to trial. This is why this is absolute corruption. This is why this doesn't make sense. And they would repeatedly, the defense, get up there and say, this shouldn't go to trial. This is ridiculous. Here's your evidence. We're also asking for certain stuff from the Commonwealth and Lally is not providing it, or Hank is not providing it, and there's still information they're getting to this day that they could have needed for the trial that they never got. But it's okay, Darth Vader, do what you got to do. We can have fun here too. But that's the issue too, is like how much information has been withheld from Karen Read's defense team. How much information has Karen's defense team provided to say, drop the charges or whatever? And I hold firm that Beverly Cannoni was a placeholder for the Norfolk County. She was a placeholder. She was holding firm to the values of Michael Morrissey's office and what their agenda was. That's what was happening. That judge was undeniably favorable towards the Commonwealth in both trials, without question. That judge was absolutely biased. There was information that undeniably proved Karen Read's innocence. Undeniably. Things that happened out there, things that were proven, things that were showcased, things that were whatever. And it would be like, well, no, we're going to continue with the trial. No, we're moving on trial. All this stuff would just happen. And it's the same thing happened outside of the trial, which was in the state. Does anybody sit there and say, my God, what the hell is going on? They do. They probably did. Maura Healey, to her credit, probably did. And she said, okay, well, public facing will just say, well, this is bad. I can't believe Proctor said this, but we're going to keep this under the rug because we can't let the public ever know how crazy and how deep this rabbit hole goes. We need to sweep this up because they're always concerned about the public perception. That's the number one thing they're concerned about, because if the public finds out about all this stuff, we've already found out way too much and more than I'm sure they want us to find out about. They got to sweep that under the rug any way they can. That's why Maura Healey will get up there about Kelsey or Karen. Well, yeah, what's happened is what happened is terrible. It's terrible. Just blah blah blah. All that stuff. That's absolutely out of control. I'm slapping at some of these comments. Sorry. But yeah, that's ultimately one of the biggest issues here is they know this can't be public. If they're going to handle this, they're going to handle it behind closed doors. They're going to handle it in a way that ensures that other people get away with it still and still retain their jobs. But all the people that are public facing, they have to resign. They get fired. They get rehomed. They get punished, which is good because a lot of them deserve it. But it doesn't give you the thoroughness you're looking for, which is rooting out, draining the swamp, getting everything cleansed in a manner that's going to get every single person at every single level out of there, which is why it's so important to vote for someone like Adam Deitch heading into the election for DA.
Investigatory ethics. The Massachusetts State Police is governed by the governor of Massachusetts.
The Massachusetts State Police is governed by the governor of Massachusetts. Reminder, that's Maura Healey.
And picking, as my private legal team exposes cop after cop, and they resign. Not
just one cop after cop, in the state police, in the Canton police.
Or they're demoted, or they're fired. And they resign, or they're demoted, or they're fired. There's clearly a rot permeating the state police, and it's not just a coincidence. It's the ones that were involved in my case that I happened to learn about with the help of the Department of Justice. And the fact that the governor has not done a more thorough sweep. I mean, there was an outside.
Yeah, that's a great point. Oh, I cook. I got cooking videos. A more thorough sweep. That's exactly what she's calling for. Is more thoroughness, more of an ability to, like she kind of echoed what I said or what I've heard from her as well, similar thoughts, regardless of hearing this before or after. I've always shared the same thoughts. It's great that certain people go down. it's great that Proctor got fired. It's great that that happened. It's great that someone else resigned. Someone else has been rehomed. That's cool to a degree, but what's really being done here thoroughly enough to shut this down, which is absolutely just the craziest part of all of it. No question about it. Unquestionably, it's very wild. It really is.
Investigation done by the International Association of the Chiefs of Police because a trooper died in training. And they define the state police as paramilitary. We're not in wartime in Massachusetts. And the governor is aware of all this. And at a minimum, she has not thoroughly addressed it.
I agree with holding the governor accountable. I wholeheartedly do, because the governor has the most power in the state. And with that said, why is not more being done? And like someone said here, why is such and such still employed? You know, it's absolutely wild.
Really addressed it. I believe at a minimum, she's turned a blind eye to what the country is talking about in Norfolk County.
Yeah.
This is the garden hose nozzle.
It's just absolutely insane. Let's talk about Mr. Betterow, Mark Betterow. Mr. Mark Betterow. News Nation. I'm gonna see if I got his video. Here it is. Got it. Perfect. Alan Jackson's trending on Twitter. He's trending on Twitter. Alan Jackson's trending on Twitter right now. Let's get this out of here. Share this tab. All right. This is News Nation. This was Mark Betterow's reaction to everything that was said by Michael Proctor and perhaps Sergeant Goode as well.
Some big news happening in some big cases today, and considering, you know, we're the legal show here, we're doing a legal roundup to get you up to speed on all the latest. And we got to start with Karen Reed, who dropped this bombshell lawsuit against the town of Canton Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police today. Now, Reed, of course, was accused of killing her boyfriend, Boston cop John O'Keefe, with a car in the town of Canton back in January of 2022. And after 2 high-profile trials, she was finally acquitted of his murder. Now, Reed has long contended not only that she's innocent, but that there was an alleged conspiracy of police who framed her for O'Keefe's murder. And in her complaint, she accuses the state police in the town of Canton of hiring, quote, virulent bigots. Now, she said that these...
And I don't blame them for going all in on the bigotry and all that, because, look, I mean, this guy had horrible things to say, specifically about her. So why not? You know, why not? Why not at all? You know, why not say, look, he said this, he said that. This guy said terrible things. This is absolutely awful. Sanity.
These bigots, their hostility towards women led to efforts to frame her. And this is where we get to the shocking aspect of this complaint. As proof, what does Reed do?
What I like about this, too, is that it further ties in communications between the Canton Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police Department, which is beautiful for Karen and her team. Absolutely beautiful.
She reveals in this complaint a slew of alleged disturbing text messages between lead investigator Michael Proctor and Sean Goode, another officer who worked on the case. And just here are some of the alleged texts. And I just got to tell you right now, I apologize. We're going to try to read them to you in any way we can, but they are incredibly offensive and disturbing. There is.
It's like he's like, they're incredibly offensive. And I mean, this is just unbelievably over the top here. These, I mean, like I said, even the Karen Reed supporters, us Karen Reed supporters, this was far worse in terms of his opinions and usage of words than even we expected. We figured he's probably said some horrible things. This is like a whole nother level here. Unbelievable level of craziness.
Eat a Black D, apparently from Sean Goode. Jew effer, allegedly from Sean Goode. America sucks. Hitler was really onto something, and then the Jews had to ruin it, allegedly from Michael Proctor. Biggest C, you can guess what that word is, allegedly from Sean Goode. And then there's this one. My new VP is a giant malignant C. I pray to the heavens that some effed up insect from the Amazon crawls up her V, hatches eggs, and the litter kills her from the inside.
Wow. That's all wild stuff. And someone said, we don't even know. These aren't even the texts we haven't seen yet. Exactly. 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 Absolutely crazy.
These were sent by law enforcement. Some very, very disturbing stuff.
Yeah.
The question, of course.
Well, that's the thing, too, is there's there's like a double argument here. In other words, what they said was bad, horrible, unacceptable. But this is also said by cops on an investigation. You know, these are cops that are active duty, and they're saying, so it's almost like a double. Whatever happened that's horrible is twice as bad because of that, them being cops, them having these kinds of communications, them saying these kinds of things, them using these words so freely. You know, that's I know. I mean, I wonder what else is out there as well. Murray B, what's going on? Good to see you. I'm telling you, there's got to be more. Maybe about the planning taillight. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness.
The legal question, is it going to be enough to convince a judge, a jury, that she's right, that the police department, that the town should be held liable? We're going to get to that in just a bit. Story number 2. And that is why Anthony's pled not to what they allege Karen Reed, awful text. I got to start with Bro, who represents Joining us now to talk through the ins and outs of both of these cases, criminal defense attorney Mark Betterow.
Mark Betterow, ladies and gentlemen. Not in the show, but in the house. He'll be on Sunday service tomorrow with Nurse Kim, I believe. I think he's on Sunday service tomorrow.
Represents Aiden Kearney, a.k.a. Turtleboy, a key figure in this case. Always good to see you, Mark. I got to start with the Karen Reed one. Look, terrible text. They're awful texts, particularly about women, Jewish people, minorities, but most of them are not even about Karen Reed. How are they relevant to her claims against the police departments, the town of Canton? What's the connective tissue? So
I like that. So this is a good question. I like this question a lot. Very good question, unlike the other Today Show, because he asked the question thoroughly. Like, in other words, we get that these texts are horrible. It makes them bad people. They're awful statements. But again, how does it correlate? That's a great question. That's a great question for audiences to hear, to see a response from Betterow on.
Well, some of it is related to what they alleged about Michael Proctor at the trial, such as these anti-women, these misogyny things. Those are directly relevant to what she claimed in terms of what Michael Proctor said directly about Karen Reed. And there are other messages as well where Michael Proctor allegedly talked about anything.
Yeah, planning evidence was huge. Some people are trying to write that off on the anti-Karen Reed side right now, like, oh, you can't make that argument. It doesn't mean he actually did it. I saw Plevin from Yellow Cottage Tales talking about that. Like, well, just because he said that doesn't mean he did that. And even if he did plant coke, I'm not sure if he said that, but kind of the argument from some people at least was, even if they did plant coke one time or a few times, that's not the same as framing Karen Reed for murder. It's like, I mean, once you do something corrupt once as a cop, how can you not think that they've done other things? Cops always say, you know, what do cops say when they pull you over? They say, so Nurse Kim and then brother counsel tomorrow. Okay, cool. What do cops always say? They go, you probably violated traffic laws more than once. You just got caught this time. You know, that's kind of usually their argument. It's the same thing with cops. If you're caught being corrupt one time or saying something corrupt, well, chances are you've probably been corrupt more than one time, which lends itself to Karen Reed.
Or at least discuss the possibility of doing that. And messages like that certainly are going to be very relevant in any lawsuit that she brings, because the defense in her case claimed that Michael Proctor planted evidence and helped frame her.
Right. See, that's a great answer, because again, Karen Reed's defense is alleging planted evidence, frame job, all that stuff. And here are text messages of him alluding to the idea of planting cocaine on somebody. It shows you that there's pretty much a certain certainty that probably he did something like this before, or at least thought of the idea of doing something like that, or would think of that. Now, I'm sure every cop probably thought of doing that once in a while to probably move a case forward or incriminate somebody that maybe in some cases had it coming. Maybe there's been cops that have done that, people that are actually horrible people. But there's also cases where there's people that are not horrible people, and obviously you shouldn't plant evidence at all. But what about Karen Reed and all that good stuff?
Add in the fact that he's obviously a virulent racist. He's anti-Semitic. He's misogynist. He's homophobic. He's just an awful person.
In other words, what you're saying.
Stop interrupting Betterow, sir. That's what they used to tell me all the time. Mark Mazza, stop interrupting Betterow. I'm like, I haven't talked in 20 minutes, and they're telling me I'm interrupting, but that's okay. All right, continue.
Lawsuit that she brings because the defense in her case claimed that Michael Proctor planted evidence and helped frame her. You add in the fact that he's obviously a virulent racist. He's anti-Semitic. He's misogynist. He's homophobic. He's just an awful person.
In other words, what you're saying is this is proof that they should never have hired him or Goode, right? That they were negligent hiring. I guess the question is, and because they were retained at that time, they shouldn't have been the investigators on her case and caused her all this harm, right? That's the.
Yeah, I mean,
right. They should have not have been the investigators at all. And that's what's concerning about Michael Proctor, is that Michael Proctor was at a wedding with the McAlberts once upon a time, wasn't he? Isn't that so? Aren't there, in fact, pictures online of Michael Proctor at a wedding with the McAlberts? And believed that they were all part of a wedding party. Or maybe the McAlberts were in their wedding party. Whatever, I forget what one now. But somehow there was a wedding. They were all involved in together and all that. Love from Tejas. Good to see you. Yeah, the sound is quieter than the last video, by the way. I do know that as well. But yeah, there's a lot of tie-ins that he allegedly has with the McAlberts, which raises questions that need answers.
And you think all these text messages are going to come in? Because the other argument is in this they would say it's irrelevant, it's prejudicial. Are you think they're all going to come into a trial if there is a trial?
I don't think they're all going to come in, but to your point, I mean, they're trying to establish that there was negligence by the state police in hiring Michael Proctor, not training him, a lack of supervision. He was unqualified to do the investigation. He was biased, and this just dirties him up. Some of these messages, I think, are just so outrageous. They're so inflammatory and not directly relevant that they wouldn't come in. I mean, when you see somebody like Michael Proctor actually praising Adolf Hitler.
That's just the craziest part about it all. He's trashing America too in these posts. That's very alarming. Everything is alarming about what he said, but that's also alarming. And it's incredible that he's praising, one of the, if not the worst figure in human history. It's unbelievable. Wow.
Which is just stunning beyond belief to read in modern times that any police officer would do that. I don't think that's going to come in. That's probative value is almost obviously substantially outweighed by its prejudice.
Isn't there immunity for the police department, the town? In other words, isn't it going to be an uphill battle that she was framed, or that the case was deliberately not investigated, or there was a conspiracy?
Now, this is a much better interview with Mark Betterow than the one with Karen Reed. I think this guy, I'm not sure what this host's name is, but I feel like he's asking the questions he's asking are very thorough, to the point. These every time he asks the question, I'm like, yeah, I want to see an answer to that question. That's a great, I'm kind of eager to hear his answers. So, yeah.
To only pinpoint her. I mean, isn't there some sort of immunity unless there is solid proof, solid evidence to pierce that?
Great
Yeah, there is
question.
general immunity, which doesn't allow anybody who's upset at being prosecuted to just simply sue a city, a state, or whatnot. But they're alleging negligence. They're alleging that the city and state, or Canton Police and the Massachusetts State Police, were negligent in their hiring, their supervision, their training, and that they.
The supervision's a huge thing because, again, if they're not properly keeping tabs on their officers, how they're conducting themselves, etc., that's why you have internal affairs, right? If you're not doing that stuff, these officers are running amok or running wild, just framing people, whatever they're doing. Maybe it's the only time Proctor ever did that. I don't know. I don't know if it's the only time he's ever conducted himself in the manner that he's accused of being done. I don't know, but it could be more than once. It's just absolutely wild.
They should have been aware of these things. So I think,
and again, if they were aware, they could have shut this all down.
Going to get by the immunity. The real question is whether they're going to prove the gist of the complaint. But this is going to help Karen Read and all her other lawsuits as well. I mean, we're talking about it on TV tonight. Everyone's aware of it. And this just makes the central character in this plot, who they've been going after since day one, look 1,000 times worse. And that's only going to help her in all of this.
You mentioned other cases. We talk a lot on this program about the Sandra Birchmore.
Yeah, definitely in other cases, for sure. Other cases, other suits, no question about it. I definitely feel like any additional information that Karen Read and her defense team have is of thorough use, of absolutely thorough use, because you can't make enough arguments to prove your point, is my attitude.
Case. This is the woman who was allegedly murdered by a cop in a nearby town in 2021. Proctor worked on that case. How does these revelations?
And it's amazing how that Sandra Birchmore case always comes up time and time again too. It's constantly Sandra Birchmore every single time. Those cases are just the Sandra Birchmore case and the Karen Read case are sibling cases. They're really siblings. They really are, those two cases. There's no question about it. There's just so much like-minded involvement. You look at what went on, what happened to Sandra, what town it happened in, what police department was involved, etc. It's very, very disturbing.
This case affect that one?
I don't know that it will actually impact that case, other than just the general publicity and prejudice.
Okay.
I know in reading.
Okay, interesting. I like that response. Good to know.
The filing today that there was reference that Sean Goode, the Canton police officer, made some very crude and disparaging remarks.
Yes, he did make some crude remarks about Sandra Birchmore, which was disturbing as well. That was definitely that. I posted that text message, in fact, on my page. It was so shocking, just to some of the things he had to say about her. Just unbelievable. Let's see what he had to say. It was just horrible. Like, he called her like a weirdo or something like that. I forget what he said. Or she's weird, she's odd, something like that. He said, as just one example, in 2022, as an 18-year-old veteran of the CPD, Goode shared his views in writing on Sandra Birchmore, a young woman who tragically died the year before in Canton, and whose death was initially ruled as suicide, though federal authorities discovered that multiple officers from neighboring town Stoughton's police department had been sexually abusing Miss Birchmore when she was a minor. After federal authorities investigated, they charged a former Stoughton police officer with her murder, and her death is now classified as a homicide. The Norfolk County District Attorney's Office earlier this year changed her death from suicide to undetermined. Against this backdrop, Goode told his friends that chick was borderline R-word. Unbelievable. But those are the comments these guys are making. It's laughable in how shocking it is. It's laughable in how shocking it is. That's my opinion on that. Unreal. This case I don't know much about. I've heard about it. Some kind of stabbing or murder that took place here. This case I'm not familiar with, but I've heard about it, which is wild. Here we go. Let's talk about the planning evidence post by Betterow. Right here, 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 and there. Okay, perfect. All right. Betterow says in one of his tweets, let that sink in. The disgraced cop accused of framing Karen Reed with planted taillight pieces discussed with another officer, his willingness to plant evidence. Now imagine what impact this message would have on Karen's jurors. In addition to, this is from the statement, in addition to these horrific statements indicated, the extent to which he believed those with backgrounds and characteristics similar to him, white male, were superior to others, women non-white, Proctor also wasn't shy about his other proclivities, can't even say the word, sorry, that made him patently unfit for service, including that more than once Proctor discussed planting coke on people and shoving a nightstick up someone's ass. That's incredible. That just, again, when you're talking about somebody that is potentially, if you're making an accusation against somebody saying, hey, I think this guy planted evidence, did whatever, Kelly Reed's in the house. Hi, Mark. Appreciate you all working, plus missed most of your show, but I'm listening now. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it. Shout out to Kelly Reed. Give the Reed family my best. Give Nathan, Will, all of them my best. Janet, my best. Karen, my best, if you would. Thank you so much. I'll give them all our best. Miss them, love them. Happy things are moving forward here with a lot of these suits for them. Great filings here and good stuff. No question about it. Again, just Proctor, doing this kind of stuff, saying these kinds of things. It just lends itself to Karen's argument and her team's argument. No question about it. A lawyer for Proctor called to focus on anything other than Miss Reed's own conduct, telling and predictable, and said the evidence is overwhelming that Reed killed O'Keefe with her SUV. It is a matter of undisputed fact that anything Proctor did or said in his personal life years before Officer John O'Keefe was killed has no bearing whatsoever on the investigation of Karen Reed, said the attorney, Matt Ham. Mark Betterow responds to this by sharing the post. I'll pop this up in a second. Thank you so much, Kelly. Appreciate that. Hope Bill and Janet are good. Nathan, Karen, whole fam. Hope you're doing good too, Kelly. Good to see you here in the chat. Betterow replies to this statement here. According to the civil complaint, the man put in writing his willingness to plant evidence against drug suspects, plural, suspects, as in more than once. Is there a person alive who thinks that if the jury had been aware of those statements, that jury would not have believed it was reasonably possible that Proctor assisted in the planning of taillight pieces that he and his supervisor, who have him rave reviews, found after it revealed itself over the course of 2 weeks? Let me reread that. As in, is there a person alive who thinks that if the jury had been aware of those statements, that jury would not have believed it was reasonably possible that Proctor assisted in the planning of taillight pieces that he and his supervisor found after it revealed itself over the course of 2 weeks? Exactly. So the taillight just kept appearing, and magically more and more and more taillight all over the place. It's absolutely wild. It just is. To just say that these people, whatever suggests that they wanted to plant something, whether joking or not, the idea alone is notable. Beyond notable. Would the jury find Proctor's testimony that he was not looking for nudes even less credible if it had been aware that he and Goode discussed the improper sharing of nude photos? Will Liv praise will live praise for Bleep, mocking Anne Frank, embracing rape, shocking degrees of racism, and other misogyny out of this. So I'm having trouble reading this. I apologize, guys. Struggling to read that. Sorry, guys. I just can't get over, you know, again, every time. It's like when you say things about certain people and you say, well, I believe this, I believe that. And then you actually see stuff that suggests they plant evidence. It's just crazy to me. It's just absolutely crazy. Mark Bitterow did talk to Mass Live News as well about this matter. And there's also some Sallyport footage that's come up here, too. Let's talk about this. Looks like there was a FOIA request done. I think this was done by Kyle Sharkey or Trial Files. But there's new footage that's come out. It's about a 5-minute video. That's come out here. And just so much. So the trial channel posted this. We have finally received a little bit of Sallyport footage. This is the entirety of the clip in the latest Karen Read Discovery drop. Thank you, Kyle Sharkey, for getting us this. I'll just never forget the first trial when there was inverted footage. You know, in inverted footage, you know, just these guys all grab-assing here. Here comes the vehicle. You know, police on that vehicle, see the driver is getting out of the passenger side. So that tells you right there it's inverted. Getting out of there. They flipped the footage on purpose. There's no question this Lexus was tampered with. There's no question. They brought the Sallyport. This is Canton Police Department. You know, Canton Sallyport for the police. Not in any way, shape, or form ever brought the state police barracks. Why? Because the state police would have probably... Because the state police were helping the Canton Police Department on Canton Police terms. That's always been my assessment of this. So it would make sense not to bring it to the state police, even though it's a state police investigation. Because, why? Because they needed to do some adjustment here. You know, all these people running around, wandering around this room. And again, that taillight that you're seeing, that's camera facing in the back, that's the left taillight. It looks like it's the right taillight, but it's not. It's really the left taillight. Then you see them all back there on what's really the right taillight, but they aim it in a way that makes it seem like they're hovering by that left taillight. Why would they spend so much time on the left taillight if this footage was legitimate? That ended up getting exposed big time that was a bombshell during the first trial. They were all over there. They drove that thing in on purpose in that particular place, so it'd be off camera. You know what? That's a great point, Kat. 1 second. Where are we at? 2 minutes in? 1 second. Yeah, look at that. There's already an outline of snow there. I forgot about this. There's already an outline of snow. So it's almost like they brought it in there, then brought it out. You know? It's just, this was one of the most wild moments of that trial. Then they come in, there's already snow there. Then they're cleaning up the snow once the vehicle's in. There it is. They're shoveling it. Why not shovel the snow in the opposite direction? Also, if I may critique this guy here, this officer is shoveling it to the back of the Sally Port. Why not shove it out of the Sally Port? Would that not make more logical sense? Big congregation. All the glitching now, the magic dance. Look at this, look at this. What the hell's going on here? That's bizarre. What the hell? They're ghosts in the Sally Port. Look at this. They're all congregating back. A lot of them are congregating back there on the right taillight. They really thought they could put one over on the defense team. But if you look at this police car that just recently got auctioned, I believe, police is spelled backwards. Then somebody just disappears right there. Vanishes. See the guy in the back? Watch the guy in the winter hat. Right here. Watch him walking away in the back. Watch him. He just disappears. Bloop. Gone. (1964) Galaxy. Yeah. Oh, is this a two-sided port? I forgot about that. Maybe there's another side. Okay, that makes sense. Forget about that. Oh, that's right. It was two-sided. I forgot about that. Yeah, they dropped the doors on both sides. That's right. Forget about that. It's been a while since I've watched Sally Port footage. It's been like a year. Forgive me. There's the backwards 4. Here comes a crime scene tape, which is wild. Bob the dummy there. And there they are all again. Back towards that right taillight. Right there. There they go. Just craziness. Absolutely craziness. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call it a show. Thank you to everybody that sent the super chat today. Thank you to the Cash App from Elizabeth. I appreciate that. Again, Sharon Keefe, thank you. Erica, Gen X, Erica, thank you. Emily C, thank you. Sarah B Creative, thank you. I'm going to call it a show. I'm going to go make lunch, and I got some other things I got to do today and tonight. And then you guys have a great day. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm going to be back tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe a show. We'll see. I don't know yet. We'll see if there's some things to talk about and all of that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Please subscribe to this channel as well. Be sure to share the stream if you're able to, but like, subscribe. And yeah, that's right. Both ends. I forget about that. Yeah. It's usually like, forget about that. It's been so long since I've watched that footage. It's just like, yeah. Now look, I saw a door. I'm like, wait a second, that's right, there's a door. So it made sense that he was shoveling that way. So all good. It's all right, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day, great Saturday from MazzaMedia. I'm Mark. Take care. Karen Reed, fighting away against this corruption every day, and the best we can do is help out. So thank you guys. Have a good one. Take care, and have a nice day.